joining us this evening. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There's a roll call. I am here. Ella will be here shortly, I believe. James Downey here. Nan Durkee.
Here.
John Giuliano.
Here.
Timothy Park.
Here.
Taylor Boucher.
Here.
All right. Okay, Dr. Denali, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, President Roach. And I will give you some of these first. Okay. As always, Board President Roach, thank you for the time, and thank you, board members, for allowing me to do this as we recognize success of our students and athletes and coaches, and some of our just students. So tonight we'll be recognizing two teams, two students, and I'll be mentioning one of our alumni. Oh no, you're fine.
Right on time.
Start.
I'd like to recognize three of our Fort Edward student athletes who were members of the Argyle team, tennis team this year. The Argyle tennis team were the 2023 Adirondack League champions. They posted a 6-1 victory over Hadley Luzerne this past spring to win the league. The student athletes I am talking about are Angelo Saunders, Calvin Boucher, and Preston Hewlett. Preston and Calvin were doubles partners, and during the match that I went and observed against Hadley Luzerne, I overheard a few parents saying how they were a good team, but at times would yell at each other just a little bit. So it was interesting to hear, but their chemistry obviously worked out, and again, we recognize them as league champions as part of that team, so again, congratulations to that team. Now, I'd like to recognize the Fort Edward student athletes and coaches of our HFE baseball team. Our HFE baseball team ended the season with a record of 11-5. They won the Section 2 Class D championship against Fort Anne on May 27th at Joe Bruno Stadium. Their Cinderella season struck midnight just a couple of weeks ago in what I would describe as a controversial ending at Shuttleworth Park in Amsterdam.
You're being very polite.
With that said, I am extremely proud of how our players and coaches held themselves together and represented HFE with class. They were still out there playing while others were sitting home watching and wishing they were out there playing. They competed, never gave up, and were right in it until the end. They have a lot to be proud of, hence why we are here recognizing them tonight. Our first student athlete is Mr. Daniel Boucher Jr. Second, Zachary Bartholomew. Cameron Brayman. And Hunter Curtis. And now our coaching staff, modified coach Jason Brayman. Modified coach Jeff Tully. And our varsity coach, Jeff Durkee.
He apologizes, he's not here with single parenting. I've been single parenting, we've swapped roles.
That's
Trying to get
okay.
a 7-year-old back.
I'm just glad we were able to take this time to recognize them and the coaching staff. Before I move on to the next one, I want to recognize FE student athletes who earned all-star status. Zach Bartholomew was selected by the league as a second-team all-star. Congratulations. Now, I'd like to congratulate a third grade student who was recently published in the Chronicle on Thursday, May 18th. The question this student answered was, what's the best advice you received and who gave it? This third grader is Ida Mae Thole. So the way this works is you shake my hand. Congratulations. Come on right around here.
Sweet job.
There you go. Get your certificate. And just keep going down the table the same way. Ida Mae wrote a response to that question. And here it is. The best advice someone gave me is, if you are lost, just stay calm. I got the advice from my mom when we were somewhere busy. I used this advice at a theme park when it was busy. I was with my dad and I got lost in the crowd. It was scary. Staying calm during that time was some good advice. Very nice. And again, that is some great advice, and we thank Ida Mae for the courage she showed that day and writing what she wrote to be publicized. We also thank Mrs. Smacko for providing her with the opportunity to shine. Again, very nice job. Thank you very much. And the honorable mention in our recognition of success, Fort Edward alumni Heather Miller, class of 2021, earned a spot on the Dean's List this past semester at the College of St. Rose in Albany. Heather is majoring in forensic psychology at St. Rose. Nice job, Heather. Back to you, sir.
All right. Folks, we're gonna go on with the meeting. If anyone wants to convene at this point, probably the time to go. You're all welcome to stay. Any community comments? Okay, board recognizes Dan Boucher.
Over the years, the board's been great about allowing the kids in the community to play youth sports, either at the school or on the property, or at least hold our registrations and sign-ups here. We're coming to the end of the year. I'm aging out of having kids that are youth sports age, and I've been doing it for a while, so probably gonna be passing the torch, but at this point, we gave an update last year when you guys allowed us to use the buildings. This year in basketball, we had about 65 kids, K through 6. It was pretty good, considering we had about 10 for the 3rd and 4th, 10 for the 5th and 6th, and then both for each boys and girls. The extra 20 was the K through instructional group. For Fort Edward, that's okay. You want to be a little higher, you want to be 12 to 15, because you're going to lose a few kids for other activities and interests as you get into junior high and high school, but it's still healthy enough to field teams. When you get into modified, there has to be some excitement to make it fun and to boost the numbers. Baseball was a little bit different. We had 65 kids, but we at Little League, mostly boys for baseball. For our majors, which is 11 and 12-year-olds, it was originally 13 kids, whittled down to about 11. And then it was around the same numbers, around that 13 number for the 9 and 10-year-olds. Huge numbers for T-ball and farms always, because they're way cuter than you guys are with your age. But the T-ball age, everybody's really excited about having their kids in uniforms, and they're great photo ops, and it slowly changes as they get a little bit older. But the numbers are, they're tough to work with. For baseball, you don't go 5 on the field like in basketball. You can get away with 10 in basketball, but when you have 10 kids and you have baseball, 9 have to be on the field at any time, and it's challenging. I know we were over 100 when Danny was that age. We had over 100 kids participating in the program, so we are less, and that's not something we want to keep going with. We'd like to see it get back up pushing 80 or 90 again. I know in our 6th grade, we have 3 kids that will be going modified that play baseball this year. So there are some grades that are heavy, and there are some other grades that are light. And he got lucky this year for varsity, and he was part of something really great, and he was in the situation that our current 6th grade boys are in. I know it's probably an every year discussion for you guys, but in the younger grades, we seem to have our numbers pretty solid, and it's a crapshoot as you get older, so. I'm a huge supporter of what you're doing right now, and I know we've been doing it a long time, and it's way more complicated than anybody realizes, but I really appreciate the opportunities you provided for the high school kids this year, and whatever can happen in the future, I know you guys will do whatever works out, you know, so I appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks for all the support you've always given us.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it. All right, any other comments?
Just as a side comment, Dan and your family, I just want to thank you for all your support of the school. I know I've only been here about 10 months, and I'm sad to hear the baton is leaving your hand, but I understand, I get it. There's only so many years you're going to be able to do it, and I'm sure you've done it decades at least. So thank you for that support. Thank you all for all you do for youth sports for us. And I appreciate you taking the time to make a comment today. So thank you very much.
Next up is our senior class, and we present on their trip that's scheduled.
They have a PowerPoint, is there a way to put it up?
I'll just give it to Mr. Weeks over there, and I think he'll help you out. Is that all right, sir?
Yes.
All right.
I'm not gonna bother.
On my laptop, and just switch right over.
Is it easy enough to do that record, or do you want to email it?
It would be easier if I mail it over. If I put it on the screen right there, it just won't end up in the live stream. Just give me 1 second.
Guys want to introduce yourselves before your presentation's up?
All right, I am Amanda Lucas, one of the senior class advisors.
You've all seen me before. Hi, I'm Brianna Foods. I'm the class vice president.
And we were,
Very involved senior.
Very.
Thank you.
Most involved senior.
Just about, yes. And here he is again today.
No pressure, Greg. You're right. Oh, yeah.
All right, class
Nice.
one, senior class trip. I'll be your clicker.
Actually, I believe
Is
Chris
there a
has
clicker?
the.
Oh, there is a real clicker. Awesome. All right, so take it away, friends.
The class trip will be on Monday the 19th, which is the day the school already has off. So that works out, we won't miss any classes.
Or finals.
Or finals, that's true. It'll be at Hampton Beach, New Hampshire. Do you want to do this one, Leroy? Or do you want me to? Okay. We'll arrive at 5:45 in the morning, and we have to get our bags checked. I believe Mrs. Lucas and our advisors will just be doing that. And then we'll leave here by 6, hopefully. We always run a little bit late. That gives us a decent amount of time to get to Hampton Beach by 10:30, and then we have 10:30 to 6:30 to pretty much do whatever we want. There's a lot of sites and a lot of educational sites that we can go visit while we're up there, as well as the beach.
Can be educated.
And then we have like the skate park. Is that where we're meeting?
Yes, so departing from the Hampton Beach State Park at 7 p.m. in theory,
Hopefully.
and then back home about 11:30. And some pictures from the beach. So So these are the major attractions they're going to be interested in, and they can pick and choose what they want to do during the day. Each has about a stipend of about $60 from their class fund to be able to spend on activities, plus whatever they bring.
And yes, a big proponent of why we chose this location is because it is accessible to all of our seniors. We have a few that have mobility issues, and that we just wanted to make sure we definitely had a place where all of us can head.
Awesome.
Hampton Beach is really cool. It has very easy ramps down to the beach. It has paths right out to the water, and there are even handicap wheelchairs that you can use to take you right into the water if you want. So it's definitely accessible to every senior. Every single senior has passed in a permission slip. We're taking them all. So we'll start at the state park is where the main beach is. So there's ocean swimming with a lifeguard, there's bathhouses and small tents. What's also really cool is that there's going to be a bunch of sand castles and other art displays up from a sand building contest on the Saturday and Sunday right before we go. So some of the other things on the boardwalk, kids are interested in the Ocean World Oceanarium, which is a really cool aquarium that they can see. Plus all the other stuff that a typical boardwalk has, food vendors, restaurants, arcades, mini golf, souvenir shops, ice cream parlors. They're probably gonna eat all day, I'm sure. And this was some of the sand sculptures from last year. All right. Any other questions for our seniors about
Are you
their
excited?
trip?
Yeah.
Good.
As we normally ask how participation was, but it sounds like 100%.
100%, really exciting. That bus is gonna be packed.
Have a great time.
Did in fact
Enjoy every
peer
minute.
pressure.
Don't fall asleep on the beach.
Sunscreen.
It's on the
Dan,
screen.
you should check to see if the short lifeguards down there, you can float a line.
He's only certified for pools, Jay.
I can extend it. Always write something.
I can't thank you enough to take the time to show us where you'll be going and how you chose that and all the things that you'll be visiting. And I also really commend you on getting 100% participation, thinking about, you know, the differently able to make sure that they're able to participate. And I know the teachers are very thankful that you are not taking an instructional day. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Have a great time.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Next up, welcome back. Capital Project Development, Garrett Hamlin, Sarah Bradshaw, and Chris Rabel also involved in that. So you guys are up, thank you.
And Mr. Eric Robert is here from school.
Robert.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
So we have a PowerPoint that's gonna come up in a second. I'm Garrett Hamlin from Tetra Tech. I'm really glad to be here. Been your architect for many years and starting to work on the next capital project. So there's needs, there's a financing plan, and we're gonna go through all that tonight, talk about some scheduled ideas as well.
I'm sorry, what did we say the other one's name is? Eric?
Eric Robert.
And are you from Tetra Tech also?
No, I'm from Schoolhouse.
Schoolhouse, okay, thank you.
So schoolhouse construction is the construction manager.
I just sent that to you. Oh, stream, is that okay? Or you want it somewhere else?
That's perfect.
Okay.
Just a delay for 1 second.
So as he's doing that, I'll set it up for you a little bit. As you know, this past May, we put $800,000 into a capital reserve in hopes of looking at a pre-referendum year of this year and going out to vote for next year for a capital project at no expense up to the taxpayers. We are looking at a $12.5 million project to be considered to the taxpayers again next May. But as you know, that just doesn't happen like that, and I'm slowly learning as well. So we are approximately 11 months away from that vote, and we are in the planning stages of that. We've had a capital project meeting, I want to say last week, and we actually had another 2 weeks, and I think we had another follow-up meeting subsequently shortly after that. So we've already had 2 meetings on this subject, and the end result of those meetings is what Garrett is going to show you today. And now, back to Garrett.
Great. Thanks, Rich.
Yep.
Okay, so tonight we want to talk about project timeline, preliminary timeline, pre-referendum timeline, the process of getting to a vote, a little bit about scope development and how we're going to work on that. Sarah Bradshaw from Bernard P. Donegan's office is going to talk about finances, and then we'll talk about next steps.
Right over here.
Okay, great. So this is a capital project process slide. I know it's a little small, but it's in your board packet, so you'll be able to review it in a little more detail. But this is a similar graphic to one that we used last time when we were developing a capital project with you all. So some of you may remember this. But the purple on the left is planning for the vote. So facilities evaluation, working with committees, stakeholders, the board to determine what's going to be in the project. The red asterisk is the actual vote. And as Rich said, the preliminary target for that is going to be May of 2024. Then the orange phases, yellow and orange phases are design. So that's when we'll embark on a process to actually create the plans and the specifications that go up to state ed, New York State Education Department. The blue section is, in the middle there is SED review. So they take our plans, review them, issue a building permit. And then the first yellow diamond on the left, right in the middle there, that's bidding. So we'll go through a public bid process, and the board will then recommend, or will recommend to the board award of contracts, multiple contracts for school projects. And then the green is construction, and that'll be sort of heavily during the summers, but there likely will also be some construction that happens during the school year as well. And then the second diamond is finish of construction, and then a break-in period, warranty period, and the project is behind us. So we're very early in the process at this point. It's a great point to be at because we have a lot of time, really 11 months to get ready for the vote and make sure we have a really solid, comprehensive plan. Thank you. So this is a preliminary capital project timeline. So we're in June of 2023 on the far left, and this is what we refer to as the pre-referendum phase. So in order to vote a project in May, the board has to do a resolution. That's the first small star on the left there. That's the board resolution deciding to take the project out for a vote. That would happen sometime in February or March. It has to happen a prescribed period in front of the vote, so it's 45 days technically. Then there's the vote in May. We'd start design, assuming the vote passes right away, and anticipate submitting to SED in early 2025. SED review. There's a couple asterisks on that. SED review times vary. So that's one thing that's very much out of our control. At this point, there are about 14 weeks for reviewing and approving projects. They've been as high as 52 weeks over the last 4 or 5 years. So 14 weeks is about what we're seeing now. And then we bid the project in the fall. It's an ideal time to bid a construction project. Contractors are lining up work for the following year. So usually get them hungry at that point in the fall, which we're we're sort of anticipating. And then the yellow line construction would start sometime in late 2025 or 2026. Probably be sort of more sort of groundwork construction, getting submittals done, office kinds of tasks, and then real work in earnest starting in the spring. The blue lines at the bottom indicate summers, and I like to point that out because school construction mainly happens in the summers. We're trying to get as much done as we can in these projects, but if you step back and you look at it, it's really only 3 months out of the year. So we're packing a lot of work in, and as I said, I think we're going to see some construction happening over the school year as well. The construction line turns to dashes in 2027. We're still trying to finalize the duration of construction of the project. Some of it depends on what scope items we have, how challenging they're going to be to get done in 2026. So we're anticipating the potential for construction happening into 2027. That impacts both, the school, more construction, more time, but it also, there's a financial component to that as well. Sarah can talk a little bit about that. When construction carries out a little longer, it does impact the finances. So. And talk about pre-referendum timeline next, but are there any questions on the capital project timeline at this point? I'm happy to field questions if you have any questions.
Would that be bidded out to a large general contractor who subs the work, or are you going to bid it out to individual contractors for subs the work?
So in school projects, we have to bid separate primes for general construction, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. Those are the requirements. Now, we might add additional contracts beyond that if there was a good reason for that. Sometimes we pull a Bateman out and do that as a separate prime, but for sure we're going to have 4 primes there.
Is there any stipulation in the contracts adhering to the timeline and what the bidders discussed and penalties?
Yep. So the construction manager, Schoolhouse Construction, will develop the construction schedule for the project. We'll work closely with them. There will be ties for the contractors to have to adhere to that. Penalties are possible. Liquidated damages is the phrase for that. And we'll work with your legal counsel to determine whether that's something that makes sense or not. There are some upsides and some downsides to doing liquidated damages, but the important thing is really, from my vantage point, been doing schools for many, many years, is having a realistic schedule. Because if we have a schedule that's unrealistic, then the contractors get started and it's sort of they're behind the 8 ball from the very beginning. So having a good schedule that's doable is really important.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you try to condense it too much, you get less than stellar work sometimes.
Right, and you might scare bidders off too if you have a schedule that looks unreasonable.
I would be more concerned with staying within a reasonable timeline. And then, as you said, if that extends out, that has some financial implications as well. So I'd be concerned with that. And it's not through any fault of anybody, then sometimes it's a supply issue.
Yeah.
Or a labor issue sometimes.
So one of the things that I like to do, and I think that's true for the whole team, your whole project team, is to be a little on the conservative side. So to plan for the potential for construction going into 2027. If we can do better than that, then obviously we're going to work towards doing that. But what I don't want to say is we're going to finish construction in 2026, and then I'm back here in the beginning of the end of 2025 saying, folks, it's going to change here.
Thank you very much.
Plan for the worst and expect the best. Right. Okay, other questions?
Yeah, I want to hear it.
Yeah.
Does the capital project vote have to coincide with our budget vote?
No.
Or is there an advantage or disadvantage to doing it at the time?
So technically, it doesn't have to be on the same day as your budget vote. Some districts will do them off the budget cycle. Some districts will do them on the budget cycle. If you had a controversial vote, let's say if this was something that had a high tax impact as a vote, as a capital project, then our recommendation would be don't do it on your budget vote because it can impact your budget vote.
Yeah.
Something everybody's concerned about, they take it out on the budget. So in this instance, because it's going to be a fully funded project, meaning no new taxes to the taxpayer, we think it makes sense to vote it in May. Chris is pretty confident that his upcoming budget next year is gonna be a good budget. That's a long ways off, but I think that's an accurate feeling at this point. So to do them together, it saves a little bit of money, because it's a cost to run a separate time. And we think actually it makes some good sense to do them around the same day.
Okay, great.
Any other questions? Okay, can you help me advance?
Yes, sir.
So the next slide is a preliminary pre-referendum timeline. So on the left is where we're at, June 2023, and then the vote on May 2024 is on the far right. So you see a number of things going on here. Again, as I said, if we look at the blue line at the top, it ends in a small star. That's the point in March, maybe February, we'll have to work through that, of the board doing a resolution. So you will do 2 resolutions on the night. One is the SEEKR, State Environmental Quality Review Act. So that's something that your attorneys will work on, will help them with that. It's a requirement when you're doing capital project work. It's a process to make sure that you're not negatively impacting the environment. That's one resolution, and then the second resolution is actually the one saying we're going to go out for a vote. So that would happen in February or March. The next line down is Board of Education meetings. So there's an asterisk on tonight in the vertical dash red line there. There's an asterisk in March of 2024, and there's going to be plenty of meetings in between where we're back updating the board, getting your input. This is going to be sort of an intensive process. We're going to make sure that everybody's aware of what's going on, all your questions are answered, you have input on the project. The next line is the Facilities Committee. So you'll see there's an asterisk a little bit later in June. I think we're tentatively scheduled for June 20th for the Facilities Committee. And then we have another one in February, about a month before, February 2024, about a month before the board resolutions. That's sort of the last one where the committee will take a look at things and make sure they're good with it. Again, there are going to be others added in between along the way. The orange line is scope development, and so that's ongoing now. We have a preliminary list. Steve's put together some items, Rich, others. Greg Diefenbach was caring for things when he was here for sort of preliminary scope items. We're gonna, with the board's blessing, if you're feeling comfortable that this is a plan you want to undertake, we'll start a process. Tetra Tech will come in, we'll evaluate those scope items, we'll put some more information to it, and then Schoolhouse Construction will take that and start to develop estimates for the work. That process will undoubtedly include some things that are going to be in the project and probably some things that are going to need to be deferred. $12 million project, it's a good sized project, it's going to get a lot of work done, but in my experience, there's always other things that you think, you'd like to get to, so we'll have to make some decisions about what's priority and what's not, what needs to be deferred. The next line, the sort of tan to brown, is stakeholder input. Mr. Damali has said along the way that he really wants to have sort of a broad and open process to get good input on what the scope of the project's going to be. And so the line is a little bit lighter at this point because we want people to start to hear about the project. We want to start to gather their input. The plan, though, really is in the fall, this fall, 2023. We'll get through the summer, we get all our work done, then we bring the students come back, faculty are back. And that period from sort of September to November would be a little bit more intensive process of getting input from stakeholders. Who are the stakeholders? You guys are going to have to determine how that works. There are lots of different ways we can gather stakeholder input. Students are always helpful, community members, we can do some public meetings, whatever you feel like might make some sense. The bottom line is we want to run an open and transparent process. We want to really determine what the needs are, and then make sure that the capital project is addressing the highest priority needs. And then the last line is the green line at the bottom. So you'll see I've got it sort of light green until September. This is a good time to just be starting to talk about that there's a capital project coming. It'll intensify in September. leading up to the March board resolution, and then there's that period between March of 2024 to the vote itself in May where, there's gonna be a lot of activities talking about the project, promoting it in ways to get the message out there. So I would encourage regular communication so that people understand it's a transparent process, that there aren't any surprises. No one says at the end, I never heard that you guys were gonna do a capital project. So any questions on the pre-referendum timeline? Okay, great. Scope development process, I'm not gonna spend a whole lot of time on this because I've kind of touched on it along the way, but this is an image of the beginning of the list, sort of the wish list, if you will, that we've been caring for over the last pretty much year. Anytime anybody says something about how I need to do something in Fort Edward, I jot it down. Rich has done a great job of saying, do you have this on the list? Do you have that on the list? So we've got a pretty good preliminary list, but if you look at it, there's no construction budgets in that first column. That's the step where we're gonna need to give Schoolhouse enough information that they can start to put pricing to things. Then we'll assign priorities, and we'll be off and running. The one other thing I want to mention is, I've got a note at the bottom, the NYSERDA energy analysis. You may remember that Tetra Tech has been retained by the district to do an energy analysis here in Fort Edward, and the timing for that works pretty well. We're going to be doing that study, we are doing that study right now, and we'll be able to funnel that information into the scope development process as well. So if we go to the next slide, please. This is finances, and I'll hand it over to Sarah Bradshaw.
Thank you, Garrett. Do this again. Do you have ours, or do you need this?
I have the one that looks like that, but I wasn't sure if you were gonna do
This is a
like
PowerPoint.
I was gonna say, I thought you guys said you were gonna do a PowerPoint.
Yes, thank you.
So I didn't send it to them.
And then do you have paper copies, or including? Perfect. Nice to see everybody again.
You may have better work than that than I do.
I need to stand closer and see if I can. So this is, I'll just speak while this is getting set up. This is really the same format that we've kind of gone through. I'll go through it in good detail. Stop me if you have any questions or if you want me to elaborate on anything. If you want anything connected to what Garrett kind of just spoke of, let me know and I can kind of explain how our pieces come together. Right now, we're all three separate and different conversations, but we all pull it together. We're all needed. And to your point with the construction and schedule changes and things, there are a lot of meetings up front, and that continues on throughout the process of the project. And as long as, so you have two pieces, right? You have your capital construction project and the timing and the flow of how that's going, as well as the financial piece. So as long as they stay connected, you should, even if it moves out, the control is still, the project is still the project. Your dollars are needed when the construction starts, when it's ended. So we have a lot of meetings along the way that we're evaluating, where the product is, if it's going to be available, how it has to be. Review times are going, sometimes they get longer, sometimes they're shorter. So again, there's a great communication, a great team behind throughout the whole process that really gives some comfort level on moving this smoothly along and make the adjustments when needed. Okay, so like Garrett was just explaining, there's a need for a project. The scope is one piece of it. How that fits into the financial picture of the district and if any impact, as well as timing. What timing makes sense? Is there an ability to bring a project on that makes more sense for the Fort Edward district? So what we do is we start with your current position, your existing debt, that's in the blue area here. So the projects that are really behind these numbers is a 2008 project, the 6.5, and we have a 2016 project, that's your last one that was completed, the 4.7. So we have the debt service coming in on all of those, your building aid in column D, and really the focus here is column F. That's your local share of your current existing projects. And that's monitored throughout the year, but every year, once a year, we do a debt service budgeting document for the district. provided to Chris to take a look at for budgeting purposes, but as well as we want to make sure, is there any drops, is there any spikes, is there anything that needs to be paid attention to and make any movement on. So that is take a look at column F. This area here is the capital outlay projects. We've talked about it a few times. Those are each year you have a $100,000 limit of a construction project in one fiscal year. Gets spent out 1 year and you get the aid back on it, very much like your emergency project is going to work the next fiscal year. So great opportunity to kind of maintain and keep going with smaller things in the district. So we are, if you look in column G, the first year in the budget year that was included was 23-24, that was in the budget. So we do have the expense in the 23-24 budget for capital outlay. We do have it built in again in the 24-25. So how this is going to work is it's in the 23-24 budget. So we have the funds. This year is going to be spent planning on what that scope is, submitting to SED and then waiting for approval. So we have some length of time to plan accordingly for what that 100,000 is going to be. The expense, so we're going to spend the project after we get SED approval in the 24-25 fiscal year. So next year, that 100,000 will be spent, and then the aid is going to come back the following year in the 25-26 year. So you can see we have the expense built in going forward. So once you get them going, you'll get the aid back continually, and then you're left with the local share of just the reciprocal of your building aid. So roughly 3,900. So this is the local share bringing the capital outlays on board, and then going forward, as long as the projects stay consistent, they're continually being built into the budget, continually being finished timely, so we can get the final cost reports in and get your aid back. They run very smoothly at that point. Good opportunity to do some work throughout the buildings. So leaves us to column J. This is looking at your existing capital projects, debt service and building aid, combining it in with the capital outlays. So now we can see our local share here in the 24 year and the 25 year is roughly around 50,000. If you look after this dotted line, that's where you'll see the drop off, so roughly 72,000. So we have an opportunity to be able to time-wise what vote makes sense to bring a project on. All of this is extra building aid coming into the district. And then we have up until 50,000, that's where there would be no additional tax impact to be able to bring this project on. So again, our goal is to have debt service first hit in the 25-26 year to just really flatline and manage your local share, 50,000 consistently down. The ups and downs, whether is not great to manage, and it's felt publicly. But keeping that steady is really the goal, and it's a great opportunity to be able to get a capital project on board with no additional impact. So that is the fiscal year 25-26, your drop off. This is just a visual of it. So our goal again with the financing is bringing everything fitting in below that black line, and again, that would be the no additional impact. Any questions so far? Okay. So this is the visual of the capital outlays. I know they can get a little confusing in how the timing of it works. So this is what's called a 4-year plan. It's kind of a little longer of a plan, but it's great to be able to have some time to look at scope and plan the project, get it submitted, and not have to worry so much about when that SED approval is going to come in, because you run out of time to get the project done. These projects have to be done and closed out by the end of the fiscal year. The expenses are in, so there is a clock ticking on them. So this is a much more comfortable time frame. So this is the May of 2023. We just voted that 100,000. 23-24, this is where we plan, design, submit, get SED approval by the end of that fiscal year, hopefully. 24-25 is where we spend the 100,000. Has to be closed out by June 30th. All expenses paid, and then you get your building aid back on it the next fiscal year. Any questions?
What's the SED approval running for these to get approved? You had mentioned like 14 weeks for the ones, the big ones you were talking about. Is it about the same for
even the small
projects as
projects,
well?
not the same. Yep.
Yeah, I think they used to try to escalate the capital outlay projects. And
now they all just blend together.
They're not all as big, so.
Okay, so this is the assumptions that work well with that drop off in the 2026 year. And just play pieces in the financials. We're using your current estimated 23-24 billing aid ratio of 96.1. That is the percentage that the state will aid you back on your building project. So every dollar you pay, they'll give you 96 cents back on aidable expenses, which is very great, very, very good. And again, is one of the reasons why you can bring a size project on board for that. This is, number 2 is the estimated bond percentage. It's really the aidability of the project. To the point, we really like to try to make sure things are conservative. This project should be fully aidable, so that should be 100%. In case something pops up or you're over your maximum cost allowance, SED sometimes just gets picky with what they want to aid. Little items get kicked out. In case that happens, we do have some percentage backed off, just again for conservative aid reasons. If it does come in better, that's 100% aidable, then the financial picture just ends up looking better. So again, target is May 2024 for the vote. We did work through these dates in pretty good detail with your project team. So this is really that realistic look that we were talking about to make sure all the pieces work. So we have SED approval estimated October 2025. Your closeout closer to December of 27. So we're going to plan on borrowing right where SED approval is, October 25. And then you have your principal and interest. You can see your first interest payment is coming in June of 2026. That's where that drop off was. So that's why that vote timing of that project works well to bring the debt on, and so you have no drop in your local share, no increase in your local share. You're right at that 50,000 target. Some assumed interest rates here. You do have the number 12, your capital reserve use, 800,000. So between this piece here and your 800,000, those are huge numbers to go towards a project, which is awesome to be able to use. We started with a lower number, and we kind of saw the increase when what that 800 did to the size project and the actual scope you'd be able to get done. So that's a great number. And again, the December 2027 final cost report is going to bring in a full year, first full year of aid in 27-28. So this is the breakdown of the revenues and expenses for the authorization, the proposed $12,345,000. So on the revenue side, you'll see the capital reserve use and then your bond amount for $11,545,000. So that capital reserve amount does a couple things. Anything you don't have to bond for is savings for your interest, right? So you have $800,000 that you can put to the project that you don't have to pay interest on. So that's another reason that it helps. And 2, you have that to start the project with. So in the beginning of the project, you have some incidentals. The project has to get up and be started, but you're not even submitted to SED, and you can't get aid back on the project for 18 months after SED approval. So there's some time gap. So the longer we can hold out before we have to finance any of those dollars is great interest savings for the district, and does help the financial picture. So the $800,000 use is very beneficial to the project. So expense breakdown, again, this is the idea of the scope. We wanted to do this to highlight, yes, the authorization is proposed at $12,345,000, but to break that down is a construction dollars, so your scope items really at a little over $9 million. Incidental, so the soft cost of the project at 2.2. A DASNY fee at $370, that's a financing mechanism through the Dorm Authority. And then the capitalized interest expense down here as well. That's an offsetting source that's needed to get you to your target local share. Any questions on any of this?
So if we agree to the project, will these combined existing net local shares, will those be 50,000s going down in the future?
Yep, after that dotted line.
Yes, after the dotted line, will those all be 50,000s going into the future, the next,
Roughly 15 to 17 years, because they payback is 15. Yep.
Okay. So why is it represented as the negatives on this bar chart?
Because that's a positive
project?
Yes. Or? Yep. It's just mimicking the actual top sheet there. So that's your current look before building in a project.
Okay.
So the negative is actually space to bring a project on. That's the extra revenue that's coming in. You have extra building aid coming in. And then you can go up to that line.
It's actually positive.
That's correct. A negative number.
That's actually going to be a negative for us.
It would be.
I mean, in the big scope of things, what appears to be a negative is actually.
If we agree to the.
If we don't do the project.
If not, it would stay negative.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is, if you have a drop, that's one thing. The ability to not have a project in a building is very unlikely and unrealistic to not have a need for a capital project. So the problem isn't as much, which it is hard to manage, but to see that drop is one thing. You're gonna have to bring something on at some point, and then you feel it. You have the impact. So the idea is if you're already at that 50,000, and then if you bring the project on, so there's no change in.
I get that, but we're going out to voters saying there's no increase to the taxes, but like, these recent 50,000 expenditures are recent, like, you know, as of 2024, that's the first year we added it to the budget,
Yep.
so. Like, it is a recent addition to the budget.
It's a good
Or not
point, it's a
adding
good
more.
point. I mean, that's a good point. It's not no cost, it's no additional cost.
Yeah.
So we're paying that already, so it's no additional cost for the project, and based on our return rate, it makes a lot of sense to do it now since our overhead is coming off, so you're not missing any change. I think that's the point of doing it now. But you're absolutely right. If we didn't do the project, there would be differences, no doubt about it.
Sure, yeah.
But, you know, so it's not no cost, but it's no additional cost.
Absolutely. It is, yeah, it is key language. We do have no impact projects, and I'll show it on the maturity schedule. To your point, you will see an impact on that, the last line, right? You have your debt, you have your building aid coming in, there is an impact. If you just brought this project on board by itself standalone, you'll have an impact. If you layer it in with your current position and use the advantage of the drop, then that is the no additional. But yeah, it is very, they're two different languages, two different type projects. Yep.
Okay.
But we do try to make sure, and you can see where you can see that impact, the project standalone does have an impact.
Sure.
And an expense. Yep. Okay, so this is just a visual of the project. Again, the May of 2024 vote. This is really where we've worked with your project team already to kind of look at the cash flow and how the project would be laid out. And the borrowings show how it's coming on board. So you can see the first pink box is short-term borrowing. That's smaller dollars used in the beginning of the project to get us going with construction. So we won't borrow anything we don't need until we actually need it. So interest is not being paid on monies that aren't going to be spent for a while. So, and then the second short-term financing is where you grab the remainder of the money, the 8 million. And then the blue box is your long-term financing. When the project is wrapped up and close to closeout, then we'll look into long-term financing. Okay. So this is the payback schedule of the proposed $12,345,000. In column B, you can see the use of the 800 capital reserve. Column F here is your annual debt service. The building aid coming back is in column G. So your gross local share in H, and again, to your point, in column J, this is your local share for this project per year, roughly around $58,000 annually over the roughly 17 years. This is the use of the capitalized interest, and again, that's just to get the target local share to bring that on board. In the 2026 year, that number in yellow, the drop was roughly that 72,000, so that's where that's fitting in to the no additional impact. Any questions? Okay. So this is where we put it all together, and then you should see this filling in the graph as well, so you won't see the negatives anymore. These two are what we just went over. A through D is your existing debt. The tan piece, E through G, is your capital outlays coming on board. And then the proposed 12 million project is H through K. So again, the local share piece of the project. L, we'll be putting that all together. So after the 50,000, you see after the dotted line, you're still at the 50,000 for the no additional impact, which is just a graphic of it. Again, after the dotted line, that's where the project is coming on board. We're staying below that black line. And that's out to 2042. Any questions on any of that? The remainder of the pages are just your building aid ratio chart to show where your building aid really has been at. And your last project is on there, the 4.7. And then these are the pieces that we used for the financial plan and laid out the borrowing plan. This is what we've received for our cash flow, just our format of that. And that's it. Any further questions? Or circle back on any of the other pages or anything?
Sarah, how much is the district set aside in the capital reserve?
How much have they?
Yeah,
The 800,000?
they're planning on 800,000.
Yep.
Yeah. So, one of the things that I'd just add is, Tim, to your point, it's not a free project, but the district has set aside the 800,000 at the outset. So essentially, you save for the local share that's gonna happen. So, just another way to look at it, that the district's been, in a financial position to be able to save for that. You're not gonna have to ask the taxpayers to pay that along the way because you've already pre-saved it.
I get that, but
The budget was still right.
on the final sheet, what was it? Sorry. The change from fiscal year 2023 to 2024 was 89,000. So, like, no, there won't be additional revenue needed from this year on, but comparing this year to 2 years ago, it was a big jump.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, there's a cost to it, and
Right.
if you didn't have to do the project, then you could pass that savings on to the taxpayers. You would just take the debt drop and your taxes would go down, right?
Yeah.
So,
Sure.
so it's sort of, and this is what we see in all districts, it's the balance between needing to continue to do capital project work versus what can we give back to the voters,
Yeah.
right?
You can see the, on the bottom of the maturity schedule, the 1.67 is that average per year of the 22-23 tax levy. So that's also shown there as well. To your point, that's what that is.
1.67 where?
Page 8. Yep.
It's the average net local share of 2022, 2023 tax.
Yeah, it's at 58,000 against your tax levy.
I'm not sure why you're telling me that.
Well, you were saying that there's a cost to, right? So if you didn't do a project, you would drop, you wouldn't have that 50,000. That's the cost of the 50,000 to keep it steady. You're not gonna feel it because you're already there,
Sure.
but that is, if you allowed it to drop, that would be the drop.
Yep.
We go to the last slide of my presentation.
In your presentation?
So while we're switching over to that, what Tom said is really important, that the language that we use about this project is, it's not free, it's not, no tax, it's no tax impact or no tax increase. And so you'll hear us as we, describe the project throughout the whole thing, being careful to say that, because it's not accurate to say it's a free project, there are costs associated with it. The one other thing I'll highlight, it's the next steps slide in that first one. Just the one other thing I'll highlight is Fort Edward's in a really unique position because of the building aid ratio, the 96% building aid ratio. Many districts are 50%, Lake George 10%. So, the state is only kicking in, if you go back 2 slides, the state in Lake George are only kicking in 10%, whereas, it's 96% here. So, just something to, also, as we talk to community members, you're leveraging 96 cents on the dollar, basically. Yeah. So next steps, we'd like your blessing to move forward with the project. That's why we're here tonight. We don't have to do anything formal, but if you had concerns or questions and said, this doesn't feel right, then this would be the good time to start talking about it. Doesn't commit you to doing a board resolution in March. You're just starting the process, basically. Assuming that that's the direction that the board wants to go, we'll start a scope development process, have a team come in and start to do some facilities evaluations, and start to, hone down on what the actual project is. And then we'll start working on developing a communication strategy. I think it's really important to do that early. Probably BOCES involved in that, or some communication assistance along the way, newsletter, that sort of thing. So, yeah. And that's what we have for you tonight, folks. Any last questions for us?
Kind of a comment, kind of a question. The approval of the timeline is very well thought out, looks amazing. It won't surprise anybody here, but the one thing that makes me nervous is that SCD approval is required for things. I'm glad that they're currently operating on a 14-week, has that, or does that, or can that extend and then throw off what you have well planned?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We're a conservative team, okay? So there is some room, actually if you go back for me one more slide, there is some room in this if SCD lengthens their review time, that we could still bid the project in the spring of 2026. That's happening all the time. It may not be the most ideal time to bid the project. We'd like to be in the fall, but we can still work with that and be successful if SCD is slow. Worst case, there are other scenarios we could come to, and what Sarah mentioned was, it's kind of where is the block of construction. If we move the block of construction out, it's still about the same financing, and the costs go up a little bit as we go out in time, but as long as our duration of construction stays the same, we could move out. So there's a lot of, this is a conservative schedule, and there's a lot of room to make sure that this is successful.
A 2-month period of bidding, roughly.
Yeah, so here, and this is way down in the weeds, but a month about for bidding. Contractors have it a month. Takes us a week or two to evaluate bids, then we have to time it with the board meeting. So from the point where we're advertised and out for bid to board awarding, 2 months is about usual. Yeah.
And just to chime in on that, Amanda, in the 2 meetings that we had, I want to say the first meeting we left, we didn't have an extra summer in there. And we really kind of evaluated and asked the same question you did. And as we fleshed it out, we're like, we may need that extra summer. So just to let you know, we were very concerned about that in our meetings, and I'm glad you brought it up. And the end result of that was, hey, we may need a little more time. Because I think the end result, correct me if I'm wrong, was if we did only 2 summers and then needed that 3rd summer, that was going to be a huge problem in costs and getting approvals, and then having to go back. It could add significant dollars to what we would need to finish.
3 summers would be challenging, so we're saying 2. Yep.
Yeah, we had a delay with SCD for the last project we did.
Yeah.
We did. We had a 20-week time back then, so it's even a shorter time. The SCD took longer than last time.
So those pieces that are they're out of our control that make me nervous.
Quick thing, I'll chime in. I almost brought that up earlier, Tom, that the last project the timing was such that we missed that first summer that we were starting. On the flip side, we came up with a strategy for bidding the project with a timeline that was actually much more attractive to contractors, and the bid results came in very favorable. The district was very cooperative, and we came up with a plan to renovate your bathrooms during the winter time, and it kept contractors busy during a time when they're not quite as busy. So things happen, and we always strategize, and that's just an example here where we did have to make a move, and it ended up being quite favorable, actually.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Thanks, folks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Good night.
Absolutely.
So, folks, if you don't mind, Mr. Roche, if I could just chime in quickly. Just while we're transitioning, I'd like to introduce our successful ELA candidate, as she's waiting here patiently over an hour. So
All the excitement.
it is, isn't it? So this is Miss Christina Limson Harvey.
I just do Harvey, because the
Oh.
hyphenation is a mistake.
Gotcha. And she was our successful ELA candidate along with her daughter Olivia here tonight, to be considered for board approval. And I thank you for coming today. We really appreciate you being here and congratulate you on making it this far in the process, so.
Thanks.
Ms. Harvey, our potential new ELA teacher and hopefully our ELA teacher at the end of the night.
Sit and smile.
And the reason why I did that is, you may ask.
It was nice to meet you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much.
Does you have to set anything up, Chris?
Yeah.
You have anything set up?
I do. Oh, you want me now?
Yeah, no, please set up his, oh, Taylor's back, okay, yeah, so whenever you're ready.
All right, so first I don't want to overwhelm you guys. This is the part of the presentation that I think is kind of exciting. And listening to the capital project and all the things that we have for Fort Edward's future, what's really exciting is when I put this financial report together, it just really brings the fact that when you get the right people in the right room, right people doing the right job, you can actually move mountains, and we did that here at Fort Edward. So let us take a look at our talking points for tonight. For some reason dropped a little bit off the screen. It is fine.
Nope, okay. So.
All right, tonight's talking points, we will talk about our fiscal health here at Fort Edward. And we actually got reviewed by Moody's, who's been reviewing Fort Edward for over 8 years. We will talk about the updated reserves and our summary of that, our extra classroom summary. We will talk about ESSER spending, and tonight one of the things I would like you guys to approve is how we spend our last ESSER monies, and we will also talk about financial strategies. So I just actually talked to Moody's a couple of weeks ago. We had over a 2.5-hour conversation. The analyst has been again working with Fort Edward for over 8 years, and she could not believe that we've actually done a 180. She thought we were in kind of financial stress. She talked about the needs. I guess it doesn't take a really high. But she analyzed our situation. She actually has now brought our positive outlook. She has talked about, so this will actually impact when we go out for trying to get some extra monies and spend. This will decrease the interest rates solely because we have done a great job of fiscally being stewards of your money. And major key points for the positive outlook was improvements in our financial operations and our budgetary practices. So again, my team has been great, getting the right people in the right room, helping move this mountain forward. But fiscally, we are as transparent as we possibly can be. And what happens is when you have a good process in place, you can really truly see where all your monies go. We actually budgeted accordingly, so I think this coming year is going to really show some great things. But going forward, this is why I believe Fort Edward is in really good position, not only for this new capital project, but for the future ahead. So from July 22nd to June 23rd, we have currently increased monies in our coffers at $131,000 based on interest. So our treasurer, Chuck Perkins, has done a great job of making sure it's in the money markets and things like that, so we actually have made $131,000. We also, currently to date, when we're starting to close the books out, we actually have about $1,075,000 in fund balance. So it's obviously a little bit more than we projected, but as we are getting closer to closing out our books, we are seeing some extra monies, which again is very exciting. Also, because of the emergency boiler project, after we take that 96%, which is our ratio, we're getting about $480,000 back next year. So it was a 1-year payback. And because you guys approved, which again, I knew it took a little bit of trust on my part as well, it was my first board meeting, you guys approved the school aid specialist. And after they take their cut, we are getting $160,000 of money that we left on the table, and it is coming back to Fort Edward, and we are getting a check on September the 30th. So with all of that said, next year we will have in our coffers $1,846,000.
That's good.
It is, yes.
This fund balance, so is that anticipated surplus, or is
It
that
is.
just?
It is the surplus. We will be probably majorly dinged again, because right now we're about 18%. We're supposed to be at 4. So right now I'm trying my darndest to make sure it gets down a little bit, but that's not necessarily a horrible problem. If you're gonna have a problem in a school, it's not bad to have extra money.
We'll take it.
But
There's no fund balance jail. So we're saying for all
If I
the
give it
knowledge,
to my
yes,
daughter, she'll spend it.
we're trying.
But I just want you guys to know, one of the rules within it is you cannot spend more than what you budgeted for. So because the tax base has actually voted in our budget, we cannot spend more than the 12.5 that we have approved. So although it does feel like, oh, we have all this money to spend, we still have to spend within the limits that we are provided. So I want to give you kind of that little cautionary red flag that although it sounds really yummy and I love the almost $2 million we have to also remember we are locked in on ways to spend. But this is again why we can do this capital project, because fiscally we are so good right now that we have monies at our fingertips that again, we want to do the best we can to make sure we have the roof repaired and the heating and systems working for us, but we have the monies to make that happen. And we are trying to be really smart in our money management, but this will give you at least some ways to leave this room today going, we are healthier than we thought. Why did it feel like just a couple years ago, again, we've made this mention before, that we were gonna have to close up the school and turn the keys? Some of it is when you do not have a budgetary process in place and you actually are spending more than your budget, you start feeling that walls closing in. So when historically you've had some budgetary issues, what happens is you start feeling that crunch. You start tapping into reserves, you start going, where is the extra monies? We're not even allowed to spend more than our budget. So you're kind of feeling that crunch. When you project correctly, when you know where the spend goes, where you can kind of have that little wiggle room you create in your budgets, you actually feel the health. And that's where we're at right now. So I want to, again, rest assured Fort Edward is here to stay, and some of it is because now we actually have some fiscal solvency, so we're actually going to be moving this forward.
What I think is great also with that is if things come up that are of concern, we're not looking at the school, how are we even going to continue to run? Because for a while there was a fear of if a high-cost student moves into the district,
100%.
we weren't even going to be able, correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, but it was, wouldn't be able to cover the cost
We
of
weren't gonna
the
pay
high
bills
cost,
in
or
April.
pay bills.
We were correct.
And so to know that, okay, whatever, I don't say whatever comes our way, but
I have planned for not only a rainy day, but
Yeah.
kind of a tsunami.
right.
So when I start going, here's a possibility here, I've built in that flexibility. And that's part of the budgeting process, knowing what we've historically spent, knowing where to, again, absorb cost if something happens that we projected almost every worst case scenario. And so that 12.5 that we've approved for our budget has kind of encapsulated all of those risk that we can take upon ourselves. So that's, again, exciting. But here is our reserve summary. So I presented this before, but this is now updated from May 31st. These are broken down in each one. This also includes our capital reserve fund that we've added the 800,000 to. Again, keep in mind, a lot of these reserves have specific language. You can only tap into them in certain situations. One area that we can use as kind of like a cash is this accrued employment benefits liability. So that does actually become some extra easy money that we can kind of tap into. But our total reserve summary is $2,662,566.28. So again, fiscally we are doing really well. Talking to other school districts and my compatriots even up in the FEH BOCES world, our reserves are phenomenal. So we're really excited because even this part, many of them don't even have this kind of reserves to pay for things that come about, or again, the ABLAR, the accrued liability, that is actually a significant amount of money that we have right now that we can tap into if we have those needs. But that's a pretty good, healthy situation. That's again why I want to present that tonight.
So Chris, I just wanted to, number one, just thank you for the transparency of everything that you've done so far. And obviously it's nice to know, I know that I did too, Tom, get a little bit nervous when we started to go into the budget cycle, that almost a $13 million budget when we've kind of historically been around 11. But to hear that, hey, you know what, our budget's, to no one's fault or whatever happened prior to us, we haven't budgeted for what we actually spent. And that put us in a problem. And now we're here knowing exactly what we're spending. And now we're in a situation where we can have some funds to spend to better things for the children here at Fort Edward, which is exactly what they deserve. And I think when you look at why we went out for the capital project is, I'm looking at Steve, and Steve's been on for I don't know how many months, but every second he does is trying to regulate heat or coolness in this place. And we just can't do it. Like right now, I'm cold. I'm a little chilly right now. I don't know. But I was. But I can also remember my first visit here almost 12 months ago, going down into the elementary and walking into 3 rooms going, it is really hot. It's, that I couldn't imagine being in the sun and doing that. And then today I was walking out and looking at where we're gonna be graduating our kids, our big showcase in 10 school days. We'll be graduating the class of 2023, and our stairs need repair. That whole sidewalk is in disarray. And to know that we can bundle those things and not have to use that fund balance in an emergency way and not get any money back on that money if we didn't do it what we're proposing, I mean, it's a nice thing. So again, the transparency, your ability to provide us this opportunity to do a capital project, benefit the kids, provide everything that the Fort Edward community deserves when they think of their school is something really special. And I just want to thank you for it, so I appreciate that.
Well, my heart does bleed Fort Edward, even though I live across the bridge.
But hey, Rich, you came for the interview, we did that on purpose, just to check your adaptability and see. That's not the way it was, so we'll get Steve, hang on.
Understood. Sorry, I digressed a little bit. Please continue.
Yes, so going forward, I wanted to, because this was brought up a couple of board meetings ago, just to really bring the extra classroom together. So this is the summary of our extra classroom. I highlighted the high school student council because what we do is we kind of combine all the other elementary clubs into the student council. So you'll see the next slide, that's how that's broken down. But currently our current balance for all extra classroom is $49,744.82. And here is the student council breakdown. The only one that's not is the second grade, but this will actually break it down. This is where the $26,275.29. So that gives you a kind of a breakdown of those.
That's it.
The only one that, again, sometimes I heard that you can use other clubs to kind of, even if you're gonna do a loan, the one that we kind of say be careful of is the backpack program that is donated specifically with that intent. So other programs on occasion, you can kind of say, well, we're gonna pay back the club. Just be careful on that. If you ever do approve it, you wanna make sure that because that was specifically donated for that program, you don't wanna really tap into those resources.
Craig, I think you're gonna have to help me change that. Doesn't seem to be doing what we wanted to do.
Yeah, go back, please.
His numbers are good, his clicking's terrible.
Blame my genetics, my thumbs are big. So here is the reason for my major slides tonight is because I really want to talk about ESSER spending. I know we, in the past, have asked before, the process is the board needs to approve, we then take the FS10s to the state, they then approve it. We have run into some problems in the last months that I've been here, is that whatever ESSER spend the board has approved, we sometimes have not always followed suit. So we've always had to do like addendums and things like that. So there is some kind of transparency issues that way, and I want to make sure we correct that. We are getting the state kind of looking at the books that way and saying, okay, this is what other schools have run into issues as well. We want to make sure that this process is not only streamlined, but also it's transparent for the state and the auditors to look at and say this is all good. So one of the ways that we wanted to do this is to write not only some of our budgetary, which I kind of say, these are things I'm already saying could be off budget. We want to kind of correct that wheel tonight. So that's one of the top parts, so we'll talk about salaries. The other is we desperately need a generator. We are a Red Cross emergency approved site. So if something happens within the town of Fort Edward and say, God forbid, some horrible disaster happens, people are supposed to come here. We do not have a generator.
It has happened before, and we didn't have one. I was part of that when the train snowed. Remember the train, the leak from there, we had to evacuate, and we all came up here, and we were all outside.
We have, and actually thanks to both Garrett and Eric, we have, again, been a little conservative on pricing, but this is also including the worst case scenario. There's a few generators we're looking at. This is the highest cost. So it's $520,000, and that's also including labor. So that will be the price tag for what we're expecting right now.
The whole thing, pad.
Correct.
Everything.
Correct. And we've gone like worst case scenario on it, so that would be the highest price tag. They're looking at even one that's 40% lower, so we're kind of talking possibilities, but right now that is the price tag we're looking at. So another specific need that we had is we are creating a special ed classroom. One wonderful thing is we're going to bring 4 of our Fort Edward students back to district. So instead of outsourcing them to other places that we have to spend ridiculous tuition, we are now bringing back some of our students back to Fort Edward. And in the process of creating this classroom, we're also going to take on another 4 students from other districts. So they will pay us tuition, so they're going to be outsourcing to our district. So that's all sounds good, but what happened is we didn't really budget for that extra classroom. Some of the translation of communication wasn't always, or it just happened right after we approved the budget. So one of the ways that I want to kind of rectify that wheel is you can't make money off from state funds. So what we're going to do is use the ESSER state funding or the federal funding, and we're going to finance a budgeted line, which then, by using ESSER money, will free up that line to create another job. So by having another $61,000, we can create that classroom and start making money off from tuition and bringing off the students that we have outsourced back to district.
So what do we need to do to upgrade a classroom to be a special education classroom?
Joyce is kind of leading that charge. So she's already looking at how to do a service agreement for the other school districts. She's following suit of how to bring in a staff person and an aide that's needed because she's looking at the IEPs to kind of direct that path. But fiscally, my responsibility was really trying to open up some monies that we can finance the classroom.
I have a question.
Sure.
Is this ESSER money the same money that we were talking about trying to get salaries off of?
That is correct.
Okay, so what is the implication of doing this?
That's a great question, and we have talked about this because right now it looks like, oh my goodness, we have $300,000 that we're using, but what we're going to do, keep in mind, the fund balance slide, if you can go back to that.
Yep.
And this is part of that forward thinking, looking at many steps ahead, seeing how we can navigate. One more. Thanks, Greg. So we have that money still to kind of in play. So we're going to offset that $300,000 in the future if we need to, because we're going to also start saying, okay, this teacher's going to retire. So we're going to look at how to maybe do, a salary that might be at a top step. They're going to start retiring. So there's a few that are going to be doing that. that.
So say for next year's budget.
Yep.
We're just gonna remove that from that line and put it in with our general budget.
Correct. We'll kind of absorb that cost because what's gonna happen is you have that adjusted fund balance that can then be budgeted within our budget. It might be a little bit of an uptick, but what we're gonna see also is the way that I've also tried to circumnavigate all of the possible bad factors, like say 50 students coming into district we weren't expecting. If we only had 20, there's some monies built into that we're gonna see this fund balance actually increase.
Will that be our only salary left on ESSER for next year, or did we?
It was
still
all
have
of those
some-
salaries, there's like chunks of it.
Okay.
So let's go back to that ESSER
Yeah,
slide.
sorry, I don't
Yep,
remember
not a problem.
exactly how many we eliminated.
I think that's only gonna be the only full salary that's gonna come out of there. The rest are all partial.
Correct, as you see here, this is all the salaries and this is the spend. This is what we have budgeted, so that's actually what we've already impacted in our budget. This is the ESSER spend, so we're actually upticked it because of that special ed. These are the different taglines
Gotcha.
to using that. This is other grants, and this is the combination of ESSER, actually budgeted ESSER and grant funds, and that's where that total is. And that's where you get the extra availability outside of what we previously had salary and budgeted.
So we conceivably budgeted special ed elementary as a teacher.
Correct.
Now, how about a TA or an aide?
Actually, what Joyce is working on right now is one of the school districts that's bringing in students, they will actually fund for the aide.
Really?
Correct.
Excellent.
So again, we're doing some extra impacts of our own, so it's kind of going to be built in within it.
Zero cost.
Right now, that's what my understanding was, it was going to be zero cost because they're taking in an aide to our district to fund.
So a question, Chris, so
Yes.
one, that doesn't seem to have benefits attached to it, so that would be additionally coming from students coming in.
The students coming in would help, again, offset some of those extra costs because they will actually pay us tuition.
Right, so, but at the end of the day, if everything stays the same.
Yep.
And classrooms stay the same, we are adding a position.
We would add a position, correct?
Okay, and then this money runs out when?
It's 2024, so September of 24.
So then that's an increase to the budget, and again, we're hoping it's self-funded, so there would be little impact, hopefully, but all things being out on the table.
Correct.
We are adding a position.
Yes.
That is not going to be funded by ESSER 3 after 2024.
That's correct. But again, with this extra classroom, we are bringing 4 students within our district, so they actually now are no longer having to be paid outsourced.
Which saves us how much?
It's huge. Actually, on average, it's $40,000 for outsourcing a student for tuition.
Plus.
I have a question.
Plus
Unless they're
whatever.
BOCES students,
I'm sorry.
it's more like a $60,000.
Correct. Depending on where you send them, but on average, it's about 40, but depending on where you send them, it can truly go up to $60,000.
I know this may not be a question for you, but do we know how many kids we can have in this new special education room? Is there like a limit, a cap?
That's a great question. I was going to ask that, I think it's great we're having this conversation,
too.
but if we could circle back when Joyce is here or whoever gets the info with regards to what's the ratio of the class, because if it's an 8 students, that's typically an 8-1-2. So you're looking at 2 teaching assistants.
My understanding in my conversation with her, again, I'm just speaking off of what I heard, it's a 12-1.
So what?
It's a 12-1.
12-1-1.
One.
If
Yeah.
they're
12-1-1,
both
yeah.
teaching
Correct.
Yeah.
That's what I heard it was.
So what,
And we've
there's
got
a lot of
room.
ifs, we do need to talk to Joyce, because then if other kids were added to that class from our district, or what do you need?
You can go up to 12 students.
Right, and that's what I'm wondering, but it could change also the dynamic of the classroom of what we would need for
If we
the
had
teachers
another
versus
student,
teachers
yeah.
aid, and what type of issues or disabilities,
You mean even assistants?
If it's the adult in there has to be an assistant.
Certified.
And then if a student has an aide attached to them,
right,
a 1-to-1 or a 2-to-1.
Could be a lot.
Then that's an aide, but
So if it's a 12,
teaching assistant,
so it was a 12-1 TA.
correct.
So this will different.
No.
But the 2 pieces that are huge with that is the cost savings for the students not going out of district, and I don't know which programs they're at, that just doesn't matter. I mean, we'll go with the conservative
Right.
amount of 40,000. per student, in addition to transportation costs, and the logistics of transportation, so that's 4. That alone is enough. And then, when you talk about even bringing in one out-of-district student, and if you're talking about bringing in multiples, they get, they pay whatever the tuition, the state tuition rate is, which that's going around 35,000 at this point. And that's a set rate. We as a district won't set that rate. That is, whatever it is.
Plus they're
And
gonna
if
provide the TA.
and if one of the districts is saying that they're going to cover the cost of the TA, that can be an agreement. I've heard of that happening also, and then their tuition may be different for that student because they're supporting for the teaching assistant. It becomes more collaborative.
So would it be the student who has an attached aid or something that's coming with them in that school?
It's like
That does confuse me.
But it's like a fractionary thing, so if the room costs a set amount,
Yeah.
it's kind of like a split between the school districts. So they kind of do a fraction of what the cost would be
I
if
guess
they're
I do
using a
have a little
service.
bit of confusion when it comes to the requirements for certain students, because don't certain students have like a one-on-one?
Yes.
Some, then I.
Right, that's what I'm saying,
It
so
would be
that would increase the amount of teachers that are in,
It would
teacher
increase-
aides, teachers
yeah.
assistants that are in that one room.
It's still
right?
driven by every IEP that Joyce is
Right.
looking at, so that's why it seems to be,
If they have a
benefit
one-on-one,
to our-
normally it's from their home district.
There you go.
Well, that's,
No.
no,
Not necessarily.
But they pay for the cost of that.
well, that was what
Yes.
So if my daughter came here and her IEP said 1-to-1 aid, then that district would pay us that tuition according to what's on the IEP.
The onus would be on the home district.
Yeah, to pay for it, we would probably have to come up with, we would have to,
We could provide the person, they would provide the money.
there you go.
but tonight I'm asking mostly just to get the ball rolling.
Sorry,
It's
Chris.
kind of going. No, these questions are great, and I totally, my only thing is I'm not an expert in that part of the field. Mine was to try to open up some
We
financials.
don't want you to
No, but I,
try yourself out.
but just to open up some financials so that we have room to create the need for that classroom. And the generator.
I'm not totally sold on the generator. Can you talk
Okay.
a little bit more about that? Like, we used that one at work. It was really annoying. They had to run it every week. It shook the whole building. They had to change gas out. They had to make sure there was gas. It's kind of like.
It's really, my
ongoing
understanding,
maintenance.
for a true emergency. So if by chance we even lost power, which has happened this year, we won't have like an IT issue. It could actually keep our building operative instead of closing something down because we can tap into that resource. And
But
again,
the maintenance, you have to run it every week to make sure it runs.
We talked about
And
that.
if it doesn't run, you gotta buy parts, and then like after 10 years, like you have to buy another one, or they no longer make parts for your generator, so now we're stuck with a $520,000.
$500,000.
Like,
So we're working with,
how about a
what is it?
portable generator?
You kidding me?
So we're working, so we're working
You only
with,
need it once every 10 years, like James said.
You gotta have enough generator to generate enough power to do what you need to do.
We're not running any heavy equipment.
He's gonna be out there pulling on it.
oh yeah, I forgot to tell Steve. Steve, you'll be in charge of this generator.
so according to the
Take notes,
preliminary
Steve.
scope of what we're doing, I wanna say it was, I'd be guessing, but we wanna power the whole school.
Right.
Okay, so, the number 440 something, I would be guessing.
Kilowatts?
I would be guessing, but anyway, what we talked about was either diesel or gas. Diesel is much cheaper than natural gas. You're absolutely right, it would be like a Generac where it has to cycle, turn on once. You would set that timer to run prior to the students getting here. We're trying to put it in a place, because they also talked about the decibels, because I think you brought it up at the meeting.
I went around, if I may.
Yeah, let me just finish my complete thought, and then I'll hand it right off to you, I promise. So they walked the building, and Steve will get into that, because we talked about, it's gonna be a disruption of classrooms with the noise, just like you said. Then they talked about setting it on a timer where it would cycle before school. Then they talked about, the pollutants, and then they talked about where they were gonna put it. They had a spot, and then Steve went out with them, because I had another meeting to go to, and go ahead and talk about what you did there.
Well, cause I worked at Hudson Falls School and dealt with these generators that everybody's, this generator from, it was a Cat, Milton Cat, and they had two of them on premises, one at the high school, one at the middle school. I had to help maintain both of them at one point. I was in one building than the other, but used to have to go and maintain them and everything. Basically, they can come in and they have a PM, they call it a preventative maintenance schedule. They come in and it's all set up. They come in, they make sure everything's good, and basically they run really great. And what's nice about it, if it's set up right and done right, and that's the critical part. They wanted to put it on the front of K Street out there. They had pictures and everything, and I said, you don't want that thing out there. Well, they said, well, it would be really impressive, you know, people drive by and see that big generator. I said, we'll put a picture of it in the lobby. I said, if you wanna get it shown off, we'll put a picture of it, but we don't want it out there, cause I said, you got classrooms in that corner and you got other stuff. I said, I showed them a couple of spots where we could get natural gas off the top of the roof that feeds the gym. It would come out back here and there's a notch in the building area back there where parent pickup is. It'd be out of the way, out of sight, out of mind. It would come out right near the gym. Now let's just say, for instance, we lose power here, but we still got a whole school full of kids. You don't want to send the kids home. Why send the kids home? It's like the power never went out. It's gonna you're gonna have a 5-second delay, and the switch gear is gonna kick on, and it's gonna run the whole school. So where's it running? Right on the outside of the gym, where kids are screaming anyway. You know, everything's going on in the gym, so nobody, you know, you're not in a classroom or near a classroom or anything where this thing is running. So
we got residences on K Street and Broadway, like.
Yeah, there's none back
like
here.
100 feet away.
Yeah, there's none back here.
On the other side.
So they're not gonna hear it, they're not gonna hear the sound waves?
No,
It's not that long.
because.
We got a train that goes through every night. You wanna go pitch it to train people?
Well, it's gonna be close.
Well, and then on top of that, Hudson Falls, if you look at Hudson Falls generator, right now, you can go on Franklin Street. Franklin Street runs by the community pool. You run down through there and you look over, you'll see these trees that are grown up all the way around this thing, and you wonder what's in there. That's their generator. And there's houses right there, they never get any complaints. Because it's not a screaming demon, it's just a generator that runs, and the only time it's gonna be running full time will be if you have a power outage. And you're trying to get your computer system and everything running, so that's.
We are an emergency shelter as well, so.
Right, yeah, if something major goes down and everybody comes here, what are we gonna do?
Right.
Gonna hand everybody bits of.
Bring a portable generator and only run part of the school.
Just out of curiosity, what's the
Why do we have
last
to run
one?
the whole school?
Well, if you have students in here learning, then you need the whole school.
Well, we've been doing it for the past
Send 'em
80
home,
years,
right?
we send them home.
Is that right?
We never have power outages.
Just because we've been doing it for the past 80 years doesn't make it right.
I don't
You
know.
can keep the kids in school.
Guys,
One
I'm
promise we
gonna-
did $5 million.
Hold on. So, I think what we need to know is, A, is it a mandate to have it? Is there any mandate to have a generator?
No way.
Are we eligible
No,
for
ma'am.
grants
Okay.
if we're emergency
B.
centered?
Our data is redundant and it's kept off-site, right?
Correct.
So we're not losing any data. So we would want a generator, you're proposing a generator for if the grid goes out and we have kids in this school and we wanna keep school going for that day, hopefully it doesn't last more than a day. And we wanna keep kids educated and safe in the building, and that's why you're proposing a generator.
Correct.
Okay, so I think decibels used to be a big concern, but I know with a $500,000 generator, it's probably not as bad as it was back 20 years ago, I'm sure. And there's probably a way to place it that would be, you know, now do we have to do a seeker for that? Because that would be an
I'm
impact.
sure.
Do what? A seeker for that, right?
Absolutely.
So we would get some feedback on the environmental impact. But, I mean, that's the compelling argument, that we want to keep the school going for $500,000, should something happen, that's what we have to decide.
Do we have to decide this tonight? This is the first that we're hearing about this.
I know,
advanced
I don't like
timeline.
to
No,
operate
fine.
like that either,
Right,
but because SED is also approving this, and it's that whole process
Mhm.
to kind of get this, especially with the spend of the classroom, in order to have those funds approved, that's kind of why tonight is the night. I guess we could possibly table
Well,
the
we haven't
generator.
even seen the bids.
Is all of the ESSER money covering the generator?
It would cover all of what I was just mentioning, the extra ESSER salaries
that?
and the generator. That's how much money we have from ESSER left.
We could blow that money on air conditioners for the third floor of the high school. Like, there's tons of stuff.
But they
we spend
won't
money
run
on.
if you
You
got
can't.
Yeah, so the power goes out.
It's home.
But it's still
I don't
ultimately,
understand the exception.
Just send them home. We have
Learning at home on a
emergency-
snow day, like
we have
crazy stuff
emergency-
these days.
it still has to be approved by the state, and there are things that they wouldn't approve.
Focus on the 40% part, and we'll talk.
Yeah,
Has there been a
so-
discussion with Red Cross about
Is there any?
what they're looking at, as long as they made us an emergency site, which I know we are because I took advantage of it for a couple days. And, is there money in their part, but I'm looking at, you know, even if we did put one out here, the wall's a sound barrier, so that's not gonna affect K Street, that should be kind of a non-issue. But the other issues are real.
Is price the concern, guys, or is just the practicality?
Well, I think,
Price, annoyance, end of life cost. It will die eventually, and we will have to buy a new one.
I'm mostly concerned about the $500,000 price tag right now, that we're already talking about a capital project, that we're already adding all this onto. We've just heard we've been here for how long now, and about the money that we're gonna be spending. And we just recovered this school, and we just got this fantastic, evaluation of how great we're doing. We don't wanna start frivolous and spending things that are not necessary. And I understand you may wanna keep the kids in school for an extra hour, but it's actually astonishing to me that we're using, like, weather now is not keeping kids out of school. Like, let the kids have a snow day. Don't make them take their computers home. If the lightning strikes out the school, let them go home early. It's part of being a kid. We don't need to have kids wrapped up 24/7 in the education, and I understand maybe wanting them to, but let them have a day off.
Well,
The weather happens. We
No,
all did,
not
John.
only, no, you're right, but, well, I didn't, because we had a generator, but.
Oh, you never had a snow day? You didn't?
Snow days are planned, you know that you're gonna have a snow day. You don't come to school and say, hey, it's third period, everybody go home, it's a snow day. You know the night before you're gonna have a snow day.
No, you don't, John.
Okay, well, whatever, but, you know, you gotta look at it another way too, like parents. You know, oh, hey, the power's out, send the kids home, well, there's no parent home. You know, what do you do? So you're sending kids home to nothing.
Here's my 2 cents on this. That $827,000 has to be spent by September of '24. If we don't, we give it back. And then so the $520,000, if you wanna talk about state aid and everything, that's 100% aidable. There's no out of tax dollars, that was money that was provided for us for whatever we needed. So if it's not gonna be a generator, we should choose something else. That's my first thing. The second thing is, the data you say, I wish Sandy was here, maybe Greg, you could chime in just a little bit if you have any knowledge, but we had 2 or 3 power outages this year, and it was a huge problem because our battery backups here are not great. So.
Let's invest in those.
Yeah, why?
So which we have, but the battery backups weren't great. They only last for so long. I think the longest one would last maybe 24 hours.
Enough time to back up to our external ones?
Well, maybe, I don't know the technical side of it, but I can tell you is that when the power went out, there was a huge problem with booting back up the systems, and that was a huge problem with our boilers. So if we've got 4 brand new boilers down there and the power goes out and then we have problems, it could be a huge problem to get back to where we needed to be in a normal regulating cycle. Like getting the boilers back up could be an extra cost.
Like Tim
Getting the
said,
data,
can't we put a generator by the boilers?
getting the data back up could be a problem. Yes.
You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying this is not all end of the world stuff for $500,000
Well,
that we're looking at here and saying, this is all going to the generator for this sole purpose when it's.
No, it's a nice luxury
mind-blowing.
item.
get us the best
get us
darn
the
price you
bids?
can get on a functioning,
Yeah,
practical
I just
generator.
can't say that.
And
it's
maybe
not
some room for air conditioning and, APC backups.
Yeah.
So maybe we have a good compromise going.
I mean, if we
But
get
$500,000
half of that,
only.
This was the high-end number,
Yeah.
so this is
that's-
actually
that's-
used by the natural gas. They said for the diesel, it's 40,000 or 40% lower.
Okay.
So that could actually be, if we do the compromise, we can then have a diesel one that they actually were promoting anyways today. I was talking to Eric, that was kind of his his move was, let's do the diesel one. This would then give you some spend, obviously, for other things. I would say the timeline right now is crunching, so although we have to spend it by September, because out of our hands is the approval process. So I would say, let's at least maybe approve tonight the 40% diesel, so they can start on that part, and the extra classroom here, so we can at least put that in the FS10 for state approval, because that's really kind of the time crunch we're running into. And then maybe next board meeting, we can discuss other options for monies that we can use for ESSER. So at least we're moving somewhat forward in areas. I just, again, like Rich, I do not want to lose any of this money. And right now, if we don't put it in, there's a strong possibility it won't be approved within the timeframes that we're supposed to have.
I'm just concerned that getting hit with this evening, I don't know that it's even fair for us to vote on it for you tonight. I'm sorry, but.
I get that.
I knew about the special ed classroom because we have talked about the fact that we are doing this, but.
I would like more information on that as well.
Okay, so can we at least approve the special ed classroom, and then we can table this other spend and the other ESSER spend here, so we can.
It's up to you guys, you gotta tell me what you wanna do.
I mean, I lean towards, but I wish that, Joyce was here to.
So let me ask you
Shed a little
this.
insight on that, since she's.
So when is it actually due? When is it due?
For the spend?
Yeah, when is the approval process due? Like, when do you have that stuff into the state?
Well, it's their approval process, yeah, it's like, if we wanted to start in the beginning of the year, I'm told that it has to be done now. So
Okay,
we're looking
so-
at September, we wanna approve it today.
So there's a possibility that we may have to have an emergency board meeting prior to the next one, which is July 10th.
There's a large possibility before the end of June.
There's a large possibility for the end of June. So that gives us 2 more weeks. If we were able to get out more information by the last week of June, could we possibly consider it at that point on where we're going?
It was a week or at least a week.
Did we just get a bid from one company?
I don't know that process. I know that one was a diesel and one was
It's not a bid,
natural
it's an
gas.
estimate from
Yeah,
Garrett.
these are estimates.
Garrett, the guy who's here.
Garrett and Eric also,
Yeah, it was mostly, I would
was
say it's
Eric.
mostly Eric.
It was mostly
Eric
Eric.
led that meeting.
And again, keep in mind what the capital construction manager is, because we definitely need that guy in the room. He keeps the architects within budget. He's very fiscally minded. He knows what the products are. That's really what Schoolhouse does, is they oversee the architectural process. So they,
And
Are
then the
they
worst,
also possibly, I don't know anything about architecture or building projects, but are they also possibly suggesting that we do this as a foundational piece for things that are coming with the capital project as well?
I don't know if that has any correlation.
yeah, no, there was no correlation.
Okay.
Yeah.
This was just specifically, we had a conversation, we had some issues this year and we saw a need, so that's why we presented this.
So, and if you could, well, we will work together, because let's just say we have to push it to July 10.
Yep.
We'll see what that does to the timeline.
Okay.
So we'll get out that
That'd be
information.
worst case scenario,
Yeah.
that July 10.
So what we'll do is, moving forward is we'll see where we are with the 40% diesel. If you guys could think of other things that maybe you would want.
We don't know.
We're not
because
inside these-
those ESSER.
Well, no, I
funds
heard
are only a-
third floor AC.
AC, yeah.
Okay, I heard
But
that.
they can only be used in a
ESSER
certain,
funds
yeah.
can only, there's specific things, so I don't know, we don't even know.
But that would
we
be-
as board
that would be
members don't
HVAC.
even know.
There's any options, right?
Yeah,
Or
then we
just
got AC for the library?
500,000?
Like, for the library was off ESSER, right? Didn't we buy AC units for the
Yes.
library on ESSER 2 years ago?
Correct. I believe you
So
did.
that's HVAC.
Yeah, we can buy.
But we'll look into new things as well.
So we'll come back.
Okay, can you look at the minimum size generator to run the boiler circuitry in a case of power outage during winter, like,
Yes.
okay.
Learn how to rally up the room there, Chris.
Let's go back to our health of our school. So let's talk about strategies, because this is one of my favorite things. So going forward for Edward, there are strategies that we are implementing and continuing to implement. One is to operate with transparency and accountability. And I try to do my best on that. Sorry, it was a little bit of a crunch time here, but clear and defined budgetary process. And obviously even tonight, fiscal reports that you understand where your monies are being spent. Second is to manage the district assets appropriately. We brought in industrial appraisal on May 16th, and they're going to give us a fixed asset report. I don't believe Fort Edward's had one in a while. So this will actually give us exactly what we have on property and our assets, which will help not only know what we have, but going forward, if we see a need, but also from an auditory standpoint, they know exactly what we have as assets. And the third strategy we're also implementing is assessing innovative and cost-saving solutions. One of ours is to look at our aid ratios, because if you see at the bottom, our building aid again is 96%, transportation is 90%, and our BOCES in theory is 81. I put an asterisk next to BOCES because technically talking to our local BOCES, we're actually from a 2% to an 82%. So depending on what service we actually are getting, it's really on average an 81%. But knowing our FEH BOCES is 54%, that's kind of what I'm saying, it can be fluctuating. But we're definitely looking at, if the local BOCES doesn't offer a service, we are doing our best to find what BOCES might offer. If, for instance, NYSMA can actually be refunded back to us with BOCES aid. We're going to go through a performance contract up at FEH BOCES. Our local BOCES doesn't offer it, but we're gonna try to do our best to go to whatever BOCES that offers something that our local BOCES doesn't, we're gonna try to get aid back in return. So that's part of our strategy, is keeping the aid ratio mindset so we can kind of spend whatever monies and hopefully get something in return. And we also have returned our cooperative bidding purchasing process with custodial products. We actually paid for this service, which was not cheap, but we have not used it in 3 years. This year we actually went through and got the bidding, so we actually have custodial products at a low price, instead of paying basically cost every time we purchase a supply. So this is ways, again, going forward, we're going to look at these kind of ways to make our process better, make sure we aren't spending monies frivolously. And I look at your money as taxpayers as kind of my own, so this is the way I operate my own life. I do not just spend frivolously, I look at best ways to go practice and spend.
Who's in that cooperative?
This actually gave us a whole list. It was some of the ones we already use, like Amersco. They gave us a whole list of who actually was the ones that won the bid.
Okay.
And then they actually will then be the products that we go through.
Sweet.
Yep. But it will actually be thousands and thousands of dollars of savings because we spent cost price, we're getting the bidding price. So any questions? And you're right, I love to rile the room.
No, I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
So I just wanna make sure my list of tasks here is correct. So the minimum generator needed to run essential things such as data inverters, we need to know that.
Yeah.
What is an AC to run the third floor, what would that cost us versus this? The exact price on the diesel gas, the diesel versus the gas. I wrote impact on something I don't know. And then obviously other options other than AC and a generator.
I think a portable
Oh,
for your emergency Red Cross, whatever the Red Cross wants, I don't know why we really care what they think, but like.
I don't think they just want a place. I don't think they have any requirement, because if they did, wouldn't you know it by now? Because I think you guys have been this.
Yeah, they don't have, that's what I'm saying, since they named us, do they have money they wanna give to us to pay for? Cause they don't know what they have.
Yeah.
All right, and the impact on the timeline, we'll have to find out if July 10.
It's
Was
just
there
get
a
all
comment
in.
about some battery backup or something that you would
Oh, the
mention?
APC, we need to up those APC.
The data backup.
I believe that was something we just put in for COSER. I'll check with Sandy, but that was something I know.
Yeah.
has
And
come
Rich
across.
check to see if we need a secret for, if we're gonna put something out.
I know the answer to that, but I mean, I know
I
that,
think it's,
we talked about it in the meeting, but I can't remember, so that should be an easy one.
It's just working magic at everything, the generator, the ACs, the APC.
I almost live here anyways, thank you.
Well, either way, it'll be on the wish list for the capital project as well, whatever we don't do with this, so.
Awesome, thank you.
Well, we lose it,
All
so.
right, I'm gonna move on.
Yeah, just on that one vein, just to stay with Chris there, if you folks haven't read that Moody's Investor Service, those of us who've been on the board for a while, it was nice to read it and come back and smile. So it's very good. It's interesting how they, possibly bringing back bus transportation, starting with Lower Green Mills, may have an effect on April, stabilizing. We got some interesting suggestions, but it's a good read if you haven't, I would check through, but it's a plus for Chris and his gang.
Yeah.
So it's nice to read that.
Thank you, everybody.
Smile when it's done.
Done with that,
Finance committee met this evening, I think we have 2 members here for that. One member here for that.
Yep.
Seems like everything's going well, James.
He gave the same thing, so I got my questions off
Thanks,
for
James.
myself, so it's easy on me.
We're all good there, cash flow's good, everything's good.
I like the one-on-one.
I see that Amanda is working on setting a date for the policy review committee.
Yeah, so I'll get an email, another email out about that. So we're going to do in June, but things are just a little hectic and busy, so I'll circle back when they would settle me the so we'll get that set up.
Athletic committee met on 6/6. There was some very detailed notes in the board packets.
Yeah, I wanted to stop here for a second and talk about this if we can. I did miss the athletic committee meeting. I had a sinus infection from all the beautiful weather that we had going on for 2 weeks in a row. But I heard some pretty crazy stuff afterwards about it. The fact that we may have reached out to Hartford School from our school about potentially severing the merger.
Yeah, no.
There was no word that went out from our school to Hartford.
There was, hey, we're reevaluating what we're doing here with, not reevaluating. We are assessing our merger. We're discussing the merger. Is there anything you want to tell us where we can do better on our end?
I just have a couple thoughts on this.
They're meeting
right
tonight to do the same
after,
thing.
this was right the same week after we just lost regionals with this team. For the first time in 7 years, whenever the last time the girls basketball team went to states, which was, I think, 3 years after me, I've never seen our community since then come together and travel and support the team. And I saw little kids with jerseys and running all over the place looking up to sports. If we want to potentially grow our program, I think that keeping a team that has won this year and not talking 5 days, if that, afterwards about potentially reevaluating our situation, it's just disturbing to me. And from what I heard, it all started with one teacher or one coach who brought this up, and then we decided that we're gonna reach out to Hartford and let them know we might be thinking about it. It really upset me. I think that they're very good partners of us. We've talked about terrible merger partners that we've had in even this past year, and they have treated us with respect and dignity, even though with our varsity squad, we only had 3 boys on the team. I felt like when I was there as a Fort Edward fan, any game, we felt like partners with Hartford. It was HFE, it wasn't Hartford with a couple Fort Edward kids on it. And I just really had to voice my opinion on that because I was so upset upon hearing that this happened so close to our such an excellent season that we potentially gave them even a bad vibe that we might be backing out of this. It just is extremely upsetting to me, and I am totally for keeping the Hartford Fort Edward baseball softball alliance as long as possible. I mean, why end good things? I just don't understand it. We do this to ourselves. We put up our, you know what, and then we're back in the same spot in a couple
We did it
years.
because we didn't have enough kids, and if we had
Correct.
enough kids, we would still
We
do
don't
it.
have enough kids.
Well, I think that's what we're evaluating.
Well,
Just look at the teams.
you wanna go for a second?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with what you're saying, Taylor, and I had sent an email with some concerns earlier, or on Monday, it was last week, not earlier this week. And there was response with regards to the steps that had been taken leading up to the athletic committee meeting. I think that with everything that happens, we as a board need to take things and learn and move forward. And part of what I want us to discuss, this is twofold. Part of what I want us to discuss at our budget workshop when we have that this summer is the importance of us as a board laying really, really clear clear goals as us as a board, which we have up here. What I also have on the list of things that I think we should do, and this really brings it to the forefront, is what are our goals then as committees, as Board of Ed committees? And I think, unfortunately, we as a board we've had goals and they're general, but we haven't been real clear because we're still putting pieces together, we have new people. It's hard for Rich to know what our goals are when we haven't really talked about them clearly. And I just want to pull out one thing from the minutes, and because Rich had said, or in the minutes it states under letter F, at the first bullet there, thought we would be working toward building our own program. I'm only going to speak right now as myself as a board member, because it's not as the board, but I think when we have discussions in the summer, we need to make it very clear. I as a board member, I'm not interested in looking at dissolving sports mergers. I feel that sports mergers are much more and more the norm of what's happening now. I think that what we need to be looking at as a board and as a district is, yes, evaluating our mergers, but not evaluating as to whether we need to dissolve them. We need to evaluate the few things that you just said, Rich. What went well? What do we need to do to work together to improve? And what do we need to do to have sustainable mergers with these people? These are districts within our region, and we don't have many to work with that are because of the geographic location. We need to approach each and every one of these mergers, and we can't control how anyone else approaches it. This is not just a Hartford thing. We have mergers with Argyle. We've worked with others before. We as a board need to extend our gratitude and appreciation to our sports collaborating districts. Our conversations about, any conversations about dissolving are not collaborative and should not be the goal at this time or the foreseeable future. Our enrollment is dropping. Our enrollment as a whole is low. I don't know sports. I'm not going to pretend to know sports. I understand that I have a husband who knows sports and plays a very large role in this. My heart is not about the sports. It's about the connection with these districts that we are working with. We have felt the negative impact of other pieces, and I think that when we have our summer workshop, we need to, I go back to clarify Board of Ed goals, clarify committee goals, and within that, and I'm not going to chime in on the sports aspect of all of it because it's not my wheelhouse, but how do we continue to be collaborative and sustainable with our sports mergers and discussing dissolution. I just, as we move forward, I hope that's not in our minutes as we move.
Did you have an unfinished thought?
No,
Okay.
Perfect.
Anybody else? Okay. So, I was very clear, as Dr. Canal did about our expectations and what my expectations are. So, I'd like to start with 1B. That's okay. So, Coach Toomey has some concerns about the modified softball. And I understood her concerns. Didn't agree with them maybe, but I understood. So her biggest concern was her girls, the Fort Edmond girls. She felt that she had enough players to not merge. Am I on the right track?
And she showed trend data.
And she did. She showed trend data. But I felt that the biggest reason that she did not want to merge with Hartford and have her own team, and she wasn't looking to dissolve everything with Hartford. She was only looking to dissolve that particular aspect of it.
But just chime in quick.
Go ahead.
But her whole goal in the start of it was, we always get into these and there's never a discussion with anybody.
Right.
So can we have one?
Right. So she wanted a discussion, so we discussed it. Her thing was her girls weren't getting enough at bats. The Hartford girls were getting more at bats. My question was why? Why aren't our girls getting enough at bats? So the discussion led to the Hartford girls just plain being better. And the reason that they're better is they have a better program. It's plain and simple. They start younger. Those girls play for years and years before they get to that level with each other. And that leads to a better team. And it leads to, in anywhere you go, that's gonna lead to better skills. So, again, my question to her was, what are you gonna do about it? She is forming a summer league, so she's gonna work on fundamentals and skills for the younger kids and all kids. And we thought that was good. Jeff Durkee, voiced his opinion, which will go right here, about problems with modified baseball. We'll get back to that. It's not really it, but basically he said if we dissolve one, if we reach out to dissolve one aspect of this, then everything is gonna go away.
Because
Just when we
if
don't need them.
if this is a programmatic, is that even a word? Am I using the right word?
It is a word.
It's a program, and now I will speak specific to this HFE thing, but I really want this clear that it's with all of the sports mergers, the things we have with Argyle. It's program based. The minute that we say, we don't need you here, then they can very easily say, well, guess what? We don't need you here.
Well, I don't.
And I'm not saying that that is what's going to happen. My hope is though, that from this meeting, because I know there's conversations occurring at Hartford, and I think you and Superintendent Cook will be following up soon. The biggest thing that I want as a message, it can be from myself as a board member, I can hear Taylor saying these things, or the board as a whole. It is appreciation and gratitude for this sports merger that we have been part of, program-based, softball, baseball, the whole thing that we have been part of for years. Gratitude, appreciation. Dissolution has not been, from the board perspective, it has not been anything that any of us have ever brought up as a discussion item, or have requested for it to be brought up as a discussion item. So I hope that message gets back to them clearly.
Well, and I hope it does too, but going with what you said, you're absolutely right. I don't know what the verbiage was in the email that was sent. Maybe you do, Rich, but I don't know how strong it was as far as how this individual felt about that. So, but anyway, Jeff brought up a great point of, if we try to get out of one merger, let's say modified softball, then Hartford could turn around, rightly so maybe, and say, well, then we don't want to merge with anything, which would be disastrous to specifically the older girls in softball and the baseball kids.
Yeah.
So.
Right, but bigger than that, John, you've got a snowball effect.
I'm getting bigger with that, but you guys gotta let me go.
Right, that's kind of a small issue.
I'm trying to start from the beginning. Okay, so yeah, it is a small issue. It is and it isn't. So, we came up with, I don't think anybody wanted to dissolve. I know Paige felt strongly about her end of it, but the rest of us really felt that what we have is a good thing. It's not only good for us, it's good for Hartford. Even though we only had 3 kids playing varsity, one of them was the second team all-star. So, Danny did a great job, and the kids that came up. And we're never gonna build programs, like Rich was saying, and we totally agree on this, we're never gonna build programs athletically if we don't start small, start young. There's absolutely no way to build a program when you start at a modified level. You have to start. We have some tremendous youth coaches in this area. Chris Boucher does a phenomenal job at AAU basketball. Dan Boucher does a great job with young kids in baseball. And we talked with Jeff and Mr. Brayman, Coach Brayman, about getting together and everybody getting on the same team. This is what we do in a practice. And then, they go from little league to modified, they're doing the same thing. honing the skills, that's how you build a program. It is literally impossible to build a program from modified up. Just not gonna happen. You will be shooting for mediocrity at the very best.
Is that what we do with girls basketball?
What's that?
We do that with girls basketball. We bring that program from modified up.
Girls basketball program started from when
Successful.
we had, it's within the last 7 to 12 years, when we went to states and regionals. We started at 3, 4, and 5, 6 basketball programs through the school. We all had our teams, we traveled.
Oh, that, so in non-school, I guess.
Yeah, but you also have tremendous athletes in that, it's one of those cycles that goes across.
That's true, that doesn't
So
happen.
let me go through with, and you're fine, but you're establishing, we merged with Argyle, we merged with Hartford, we merged with Hudson Falls. Years ago, I thought we should just merge with one and just develop bonds and enroll through the whole program. Doesn't make any sense to me, like to go to different schools all over the place. But the fact of the matter is, that's what we do. Now, we're gonna make a decision. And where this came from, you guys are privy to more information than I was, because I didn't go to I wasn't at the athletic meeting, and I don't, the other stuff I hear, but I'm not sure how much is true. We've already not contracted, but we've made an agreement with Hartford, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna come back the next year and say, we don't want this one segment of these 2 programs to go. Well, I gotta tell you, I'm Hartford, I'm thinking twice about bringing you back. And the bigger issue is, okay, you've just taken Hartford, who it worked, and you smacked them in the face, and everybody knows that, who's gonna open the door to you?
Nobody.
So what happens is not only do our 2, even if it's, I don't care if it's 2 kids wanna play, the 2 kids should have an opportunity to play.
I don't disagree with
And,
you,
and,
that's.
and if we do that, that makes it kind of tough, but again, I just think we need to.
So
If we didn't have a success, hold on, if we didn't have a successful season this year, we still having the same conversation?
Well, it doesn't matter because we did, first of all, and it was like 3 days after, so it kind of crashed
hold on,
everybody's
that's not my
balloon.
point, but there's a reason to reevaluate it, or at least concern, because if we're sacrificing the girls because the boys are winning, that doesn't sound
I
right to
don't
me.
think that's
If
what's
there's a
happening
problem
at
with the
all. A
girls.
modified coach who, modified notoriously has more kids, always. Modified 7th and 8th grade always have more kids. They've had it for basketball, they've had it for softball, they've had it for everything. 7th, 8th graders typically show out, and then as they go to high school, it starts to deteriorate a little bit. The fact that because of a modified coach at this school, I don't wanna say it specifically, but I'm sorry, we reached out about reevaluating the situation. Could we have not just reevaluated it and didn't say, not even reevaluate, evaluate how we did this year, moving forward, what we're looking for, without reaching out to them and saying, we are gonna reevaluate the situation?
So we're concerned about how Hartford is going to take us
Absolutely.
saying, hey, we're taking a look internally, which I'm pretty sure they would send us the same thing if they were going to do that. And we've had mergers before that we didn't show appreciation for and do all this stuff. I
We've
can
been
remember a
treated
couple where a million
excellent in
people were
this
against and was successful. So it seems a little bit like, just because we're winning, we want to care about this one. That's the only
They
thing
treat us
that's sticking
50-50,
out
we've
to
been
me.
saying it since the beginning of the season, that we've loved the Hartford merger for baseball and softball, before they even started the season, because of how they treat us.
For years.
Well, I don't know, there's
Comparatively-
obviously logistical problems though. There are logistical issues.
We've had, I don't know the total number of years that we've had this HFD merger. I'm estimating 7, but I
think it
don't
was
know if that's
Jefferson,
accurate. But throughout that time, the comments that have been made as far as that being a successful and working merger is that it has always been approached as a 50-50 merger.
I like that.
And meaning that sometimes Fort Edward has had more students to field on the team, and then or Hartford has had more students. It has never been a, well, we have more, so we need this. It has been approached, my understanding and my interpretation that I've heard in conversations is it has always been approached as a 50-50 merger regardless of numbers and
So we
involvement.
split the
And
games,
then-
home and all that
Yes,
stuff, all that stuff.
Yep, and then, the jerseys and all that. So I do not feel, whether it was the winning season or not, to have this conversation, again, I go back to what I had said, the expectations, I think, as the board, it's not that we shouldn't reevaluate. I think it is important to reevaluate. I think it's important to evaluate things. What's working, what's not working? What do we need to do different? What do we maybe need different from them to make it work better, to cultivate it and improve? But this whole concept of dissolution, I think it has left a sour taste in my mouth as a Board of Ed member. And the athletic committee meetings, they're public meetings. And when I wasn't at the meeting, I heard a few things that my husband said when he came home, and in that I say, it's his interpretation, I'm gonna take that for what it is. But then when I find the paperwork on my kitchen table, and it states in there, I don't believe that the merger for baseball and softball should take place, and here are my reasons. It's tough. It's tough.
Well, and that was given by that was given by the softball coach?
There were several people at the meeting.
That, could you enlighten us, who actually, the page brought that to the meeting?
Did that?
Yeah. Who wrote the email?
Kate.
There was an email that went to
So
Hartford
her-
and
just to tell them, hey,
and
we're
the
gonna-
league.
What's that?
And the league,
Could you?
an email went to
Did
the
you
league.
ask her to email the league as well?
No, that only went to Hartford.
Okay,
I don't have
you
an
had
email.
asked her to email the league as well, though, to say that they were reevaluating, that we were reevaluating the merger at the modified level.
So that I don't recall, but I can look.
First of all, it's not up to Paige Toomey for her to direct us to reevaluate anything.
Again, I go back to it, I think that's why we as a board need to clean this up as we move forward. I'm not faulting Rich, Rich, I think, was going into this like, yes, we wanna have discussions, we wanna hear what you have to say. Yeah, absolutely, but it went out of.
Right, the other thing is Paige does have a right to her opinion, if she doesn't think that's the case, then that's okay, and I'm going to listen to her, but that is why, and we do reevaluate these things every year. Remember, we had a problem with Argyle last year with basketball, we've had issues, so every year we evaluate it, maybe not deeply, because there wasn't any, now there's issues, I mean, obviously there's issues now, but.
Well, what I'm trying to do is, and maybe something did go out to the league, and I'll find that out definitively, and I will definitely send that to you guys, I promise.
Yeah, she's jumping the gun.
But could be on my direction. I'm not gonna sit here and say it wasn't. However, we don't have a great reputation with the league. I'm sorry.
So let's make it worse.
We don't. So I'm not saying that, I'm not trying to make it worse. I'm trying to make it better. Because if we're having conversations, people should know those things. So rather than them finding it out from a secondary source or whatever the case may be. So, however, with that said, any kind of communication that went out was like, we are evaluating, we are discussing.
Yeah.
But the whole thing, dissolution came up at that meeting and has been said everywhere in a flippant way, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because that was never the goal to throw the pebble and start it. It was, hey, how can we be a better partner with Hartford? Because in my conversations, it was, can you give us a list of things you need us to do? Because when I look at the merger on a logistics side, they're sending us everything. They send us weekly updates. They send us they take care of all the transportation. They take care of everything. So how can we be a better partner in that? Because if I'm carrying that load for 7 years, that might get played out too.
Which that discussion is perfectly warranted. So, moving back to the meeting. Paige's concerns were, she felt that she had too many girls for one coach. We agreed with that. That we should either have another teacher be a coach.
Or Harvard should supply, or Harvard should supply
Harvard.
them, they got two,
Right.
they got two.
So there's too many girls for her to just coach and be an effective coach with just one person. Her secondary concern was the girls weren't getting enough at bats. In 7-inning games, most kids get to bat 3 times. Her kids are only batting twice. Again, I asked why. There's a mercy rule. I said, is there a possibility that when you're done getting beat by a certain amount of points or runs and the game stops, can you keep playing to get the other girls more batting time or field time? She said that would be discussed before the game.
You can.
Yeah.
Well, the officials,
The
the officials
officials-
will not stay, they're.
The officials
they're done.
don't stay, you're
So if
just
you wanna
playing.
have a two-team practice, you can always do
That's
that.
it. All I'm concerned about is getting the kids some time at bat. And I did tell her, look, and she goes, well, how would you know? I go, you know. I said, look, we're not stupid. You go to play Fort Ann A team, and you know that every time you play them, in 3 innings, you're packing your crap up and going home. You need to ask the coach, hey, after 3 innings and you wax us, can we still play? To get my kids some field time and some batting time. I don't think that's unreasonable.
Oh, no, most will oblige.
Yeah, it's all about the kids. It should be all about the kids. They just need to, in plain and simple terms, there just needs to be improvement. And if the kids improve on the Fort Edward side, they're gonna end up with more playing time. And between them and Hartford, they're gonna win more games, and they're gonna get more at bats. It's a simple equation.
I like Amanda's suggestion, we should go over this stuff and talk about it. It is definitely a different mindset where we're proactively supporting the mergers as opposed to our own identity in raising our own teams. So that would be something completely different from what's always been discussed in this room. I understand, lower numbers, we need what we need, but I always thought that once we were able to start stacking our teams with people and promoting them, that we would go back to 4 empty teams. Now, if that's never gonna be a possibility, then we have to support and foster mergers. So
I don't think it'll never be a possibility, but I surely don't think it's a possibility right now.
But you're right.
I think that some of the numbers, like you said, the younger the girls, the greater the numbers. Hey, my friend plays, I'm gonna go play. Well, now it starts getting harder. Practice is harder. Holy cow, I can't field, I can't hit. I'm out of here. Or, I'd rather be cheerleading, or I'd rather, take saxophone lessons, whatever. And kids, any age group, boys, girls, they start dropping off. You modify football, you get a ton of kids. Comes down to varsity, where we got a handful of kids going Hudson Falls. So, it dwindles. Do we have enough kids that are gonna stick around long enough to maintain effective teams? Look, I'll be honest with you. Nobody likes to lose. Nobody. I don't care how old you are. And if you say that, hey, I had fun, but we got killed, that's no fun. I hate to lose. The modified baseball team, they have won, they chalked up a win the other night as a Little League team. My nephew has played since T-ball, has won, as of this year, 1 game. The entire time he's played. Once. How fun is that? It's not fun. That's why people drop off. You have to be at a point where you're maintaining your numbers in order to step away from these mergers eventually, which I think any school would want to do, not just us. But I don't think now's the time, certainly, not now.
So I appreciate all the feedback.
But John, you are right though, our goal was all along, we always want to have
So
our
it's
own
a
teams.
programmatic problem, so we don't, the other schools have successful programs, we don't. Is it because we don't have the numbers to support those programs?
No,
Do we don't have the infrastructure to support those programs?
Others don't have.
Yeah, I think a
Others-
lot of
others are
schools
short.
are heading towards mergers.
Others are
mergers all-
short
those
in
mergers-
numbers, but higher on talent.
Big level, well, that's a.
And look, it is what it is. Come on.
Listen,
If we're trying to sugarcoat things,
talk
it's
about
never
girls
gonna get
softball,
done.
I'm gonna tell you, as a coach for years, and AD, a program starts top down. You gotta build a program, not just here, and I'm not, all right, I coach. I do what the program had to do. I started at Little League. I would do clinics with Little Leaguers, Little League coaches. I made sure I was at modified practice, JV. This is the way the program is gonna run. And as a result, you go look at America, and that's what happened to them. But that's somebody's gotta take charge here and run it through. And it's very difficult, you gotta have somebody at every level, because I went for a couple of years and coached at Hudson Falls. And we had 12 or 13, however many kids on a team, and the kids at Hudson Falls that we happen to have those years, great kids. I think we might have had 1 playing in the summer. You go play Hudson Falls, they got 9 guys. Queensbury's got 8. I mean, there's a commitment there. Now, for years, I coached down here in the summer, they call it Middle League, 13 to 15. Matter of fact, I've been talking to Paige about this, so I think Paige is gonna do this. She's gonna take the 13, 15-year-old girls, this Tri-County Middle League, we had it for years, and then it just dissipated for whatever reason. I've spoken to her about how to establish it, here what the league is, we'll get you equipment, we'll do this, we'll do that, I'll give you time, so that's gonna go. So here we got one who's gonna commit, because the kids you have to play. Numbers are gonna be low everywhere you go, but you are right, there's a difference in talent level, because there's a difference in commitment.
Right.
And you can't lose those kids, so I'm scared when we're talking baseball. Dan was here before, he had 12 kids in the majors, 11 kids in the minors.
And that's when the high
And that's-
levels are supposed to be.
And
That's
that's
a
with
good
girls,
year.
and that's with girls. No offense, but I'm talking about baseball. So I mean, so projecting ahead, I don't know where we're gonna get an influx from.
10 girls
So
in a
to
summer.
go in agreement with you, we need to be, take care of what we got and letting some of this stuff get out like that.
Should I just ask, tomorrow you're gonna hear from Mr. Cook, did you say, or what? And what is that about?
She's gonna tell me what they discussed tonight. And give me the list of stuff that, we can, that we can get better.
Was there any offense demonstrated by Hartford? Did they say, what the hell are you guys doing?
No.
All right.
Probably just if we can contribute.
So, all right, so I think it's great to set that as an agenda point for the summer workshop thing, and, let's hope no damage was done, and go from there. I don't think, I don't agree that it was a problem. Athletic meeting, strategy meeting, health and safety, capital project meeting, June 20th?
Yes. Is that possible?
Does that work for you, Tim and John?
What day of the week is it?
Today's what, well?
It's a Tuesday. Committee on
It's like
20th is a Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Would anybody be opposed, Rich, do you have the 19th open by any chance?
I think the other guys, that's what.
Oh,
they
wait,
chose.
that's,
20th is still good for me.
So Tuesday?
Yeah,
So good with that.
Yeah.
all right.
5:30?
6?
6?
Go with it.
Yeah, anytime.
6 p.m. June 30th. June 20th.
June 20th.
All right, sir, you're up.
All right, let's see what I can do here. Okay. All right, items since the last board meeting. Traffic pattern, we're trying to work with the representative from the village to set a new meeting date. I think, a procedure on the day we were supposed to meet, and we just haven't circled back on that, so we're still working on that. We had the capital project kickoff meeting on May 23rd. We had a Sun Safety Fashion Show and an elementary field day on June 2nd. Sorry, Aaron, if I'm stealing your thunder. We're finishing up our fire drills. We did conduct interviews for ELA and Spanish. ELA, you saw that we have a candidate. Spanish, we are going to have to go back to the drawing board on. The school psychologist position is still open. The offer I made was declined, so we're back to the drawing board on that.
They say why they declined, Rich?
I think it was most little personal issues.
Okay.
Yeah. New Meadow, they will be with us for the 23-24 school year. Their plan is to move into their own facility as they continue to grow for the 24-25 school year. We will be leasing them 3 new rooms starting September 1st of 2023. So I'm working with the attorneys on a new lease agreement moving forward. And the 3 rooms they'll be taking are this one, the business office, and what we call the teacher resource center, or what you guys probably know as the old elementary counseling office, which is right above the main office. Yeah.
So you said their plan though is this upcoming 23-24 school year, but then likely moving into their own facility?
Correct.
Okay, so just one thought is to make sure that like Wishly BOCES knows that we have space that would have normally been set up as lease, is that what it is, leased space, is that what it's called? And sometimes BOCES looks to put classrooms in component districts. We've had them here in the past
They
and then
always
they
do.
pulled out. So just as a possibility to try to
be proactive to fill that, that's going to be obviously a financial, yeah.
Well, from your lips right over to Chris Rader's ears, because he's already reached out to them.
Great.
So, because actually their initial plan was be out this September.
Yeah, okay, good, we got another year.
So we did some dancing on that one.
But it'll be good, once they're set up
Talk to Tim, please.
with the new rooms also, then that would be a good time for BOCES to potentially come in to see what the setup is like and what the availability is for space.
Which leads to another question, if we clear those extra 3 rooms for New Meadows that they had to have, and Joyce is we're bringing 4 kids back an hour, do we have enough, what's the space for that, we got it?
Yep.
Okay, because I know we talked about that before, trying to get those, make sure New Meadows come back, so we had the rooms, so we had to scramble.
We've got a room for the new special ed rooms all.
Okay.
Future items. I'm meeting with FES representatives this Friday, June 16th. Ella was at the last one. Thank you, Ella, for coming to that one, and I believe you're welcome to the next one too. So we're working on that. I guess I would pose the question as to, you could chime in now, but, and I think it's up for discussion as well. Let me just make sure. Yes, the school resource officer. I'd like to begin work on that, trying to figure out how we can get that implemented if possible, and work that. Greg Diefenbach, we will be sending him off into the sunset. We thank him for his work, but he will be leaving us here at the end of June, and we'll be sending him off with a little lunch on June 20th. And let's see, the last touches on all coaches and extracurricular appointments for the July 10th meeting will be, is it correct? Yeah.
Can I ask Rich on that? I see we had the openings that are available for coaching. Does that mean the other positions that have been tentatively filled is there?
We have applicants.
More than one for each, any position, or just one for each?
At least one for each. I don't know, I'm gonna say we haven't had to conduct any interviews.
Oh, I got that for
Yeah, so, but we do have some openings, and I'll just list them publicly. Boys JV basketball coach, girls varsity basketball coach, modified baseball coach, varsity softball coach, JV softball coach, JV girls volleyball coach, scoreboard operator, shot clock operator, ski club advisor, and key club advisor. Those are the current ones open now. If we end up settling the FES contract, just so you know, I will be asking for an emergency board meeting prior to July 10th. I'd like to work with FIDA and the board in changing the current position of marching band director to marching band / pep band director. We have interest in possibly getting a pep band going. So if so I'm thinking of fast forward to the basketball season, we will have our own cheerleaders, we would have a pep band. It should be a pretty exciting place. I would like to continue working on the pre-referendum items concerning the capital project. I gave this to John. I think John is the chair of our capital project committee, is that correct? Yes. So,
you are now.
So part of a project is having a construction management service. I'll just give you the bad news right off the top, or what I would perceive that you would make as the bad news is, the cost of having a construction management system, service would be about $750,000. I believe that's the price in there, $775,000. What you did in the past, I asked about, usually what's gone on is you have a clerk of the works, and then your B&G facilities guy would help you in those project management scenarios. And sometimes the superintendent would come in. So I asked for some references, I asked for some things, I called 2 other superintendents, and just to make the long story very short, Eric is probably one of the most professional people I've certainly met. That was reinforced by the people that I talked to. His service will save us down the road if we go down a different path. So for example, I talked to one person, they had a plumbing issue. Schoolhouse was their project service. They came in, long story short, rescued it, saved them tens of thousands of dollars. The other guy I spoke to was, they were trying to go out in a cheaper manner, because sometimes your architect will hire a construction service or a clerk of the works. So they went out, hired their architect, who actually hired Schoolhouse. So now Schoolhouse was hired by the architect of this one project. The Schoolhouse called the architect on the carpet about an issue with an athletic field that would have cost that district $750,000 to fix. Schoolhouse coached that superintendent, put that architect on the hot seat. The architect did end up owning it, and they, out of pocket, rectified it at $750,000. So where I'm going with this is, and I just saw through our CSO meetings, and who's using a construction management service, and who would you recommend? And out of the 31 schools, 10 of them came back and said Schoolhouse, and I would never do it another way. So, this doesn't have to go out as an RFP because it's a professional service, so we don't have to put it out to bid. And they would start working with us immediately. So that's something you can look at, consider, have thoughts on.
Sounds like that's what, from what you were saying, that's who we used before for capital projects.
Schoolhouse.
Yeah, correct. And as you noticed, out of the $12.5 million, I think it was 2.5 that comes out for these ancillary, well, actually it was more like 3 because $9 million was the actual construction cost. And 3, so 25 to 30% of your referendum is gonna go out to ancillary costs, which would include this, Garrett, and Sarah. They're, not to add names, but they're companies. So, we're gonna at least have to turn this around by July 10th. Or again, if I would, my pie in the sky would be is if we have an emergency board meeting, I'd like to be able to get I don't think we need a resolution, I just need a blessing to sign this to move it forward.
A lot of reading to do, John.
What's the difference between the base and the alternative? Besides,
where are you?
Fort Edward Union Free School District.
Oh, because of the timeline. The base they gave you the extended timeline today. Before, when we were talking about this, we were talking about condensing the timeline. So the base is the first timeline, the second is all the way through.
Oh.
Jeremy, you're supposed to have those answers.
Yeah. It's a lot of money.
Alright, we're gonna move on to that.
Yep, sounds good. Still looking at options to fill the upcoming administrative assistant position that'll be vacant by the end of the month because of retirement. So we're looking into that. We should have some information in one of the updates or at the next meeting. Our SAAC, the CTE, our local CTE, their completion ceremony is this Friday at 6 p.m. where we will have 12 of our Fort Edward students going through that. So that's a great thing. We continue prep for graduation. As someone mentioned, Juneteenth, there's no school. Special education interviews will begin next week to fill the position that Chris talked about. And the TOSA. So what we were going to talk, what I have proposed is, and again, we can decide this at the July 10th or at the earlier meeting, but I know that it was talked about that we want to discuss this more as a group. So TOSA, we have created the position of a school improvement coordinator. Some of the duties to include would be assist with discipline and PBIS, character ed in the elementary, the positivity project in secondary, assist with supervisory duties, assist with the creation of attendance task force and a reward system, run grade level meetings, be an instructional coach, and help coordinate 3 through 8 STEM testing. So I'm gonna hand off a portion of this. The rest, I'll hand it off back to Aaron, and you can address it in your portion. But the wellness policy, just to move, any questions, any quick ones on the TOSA?
That will go on as a discussion item for an upcoming meeting, is that?
Or we could discuss it right now, so, or both,
Yeah,
or both.
Yeah, can we just get this info
Yeah,
and then
let's-
maybe put it on for?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.
The wellness policy, the first read that you have today, it includes a definition of adequate time for eating 10 meals, 10 minutes for breakfast and 20 minutes for lunch, but we already have periods for that, which are much longer. USDA Smart Snack standards will apply. Meal shaming in regards to free and reduced lunch applications and charging for meals. Basically, it's things that we already do and have already done for a very long time, but it's formalized in the wellness policy. But this is the first read, you can go over that.
Can I piggyback on that for
Yeah,
just a second?
of course.
So as policy committee knows, typically we will review, the policies before they go out for a first read. Rich had sent this information, or Casey, one of them, back, I think it was like April when it first came. I said, yep, we'll put it on for, the next meeting that we have to check things over and then put it out for first reading. Was supposed to have a meeting in June. We were like, nope, nothing's time sensitive. We're gonna wait and have our meeting in July. But in consulting with Elizabeth Hoffman, who's from Glens Falls Hospital, who does a lot of grant work through Glens Falls Hospital, and talking to Rich, this one policy does need to be updated prior to July 1st. So we are going a little bit out of our normal pattern of the approval and whatnot, but they fielded it by me. I said they had reviewed it as their wellness committee. Elizabeth Hoffman had worked on it because she's worked with other districts. And I said, I thought it sounded good and fine. It'll go out for the first read. We all read through it, and then we'll have our second read at our next meeting. So that's why that's a standalone.
Thank you. And then my final thing in my report is just make sure you look at your update from the last week that I sent, because it has all of the end of the year stuff and dates on there, and it's also on the website. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I'll talk quickly, I know everybody's tired. So prom was a success. We had 33 attendees at Fort William Henry, followed by Sky Zone till 2 a.m., and they actually made it till 2 a.m. So that was some longevity on those kids' parts. They started the day at 3 o'clock here. So that was a very long event. We had Fun Day for the junior senior high school on May 26th. Students spent the day doing activities like Just Dance, tie-dyeing, riding wacky bikes, dissecting frogs, cooking. They didn't cook the frogs, they dissected. The PTO sponsored 5 inflatables, from bounce houses to jousting rings to water slides. They also managed to get Rich and I into the dunk tank, so that was kind of the highlight. I was blown away by how well the kids behaved. And it was awesome watching the kids make bonds with teachers, kids who, I was like, you're a talking man voluntarily? Kids talking to certain teachers, it was great. It was just heartwarming to watch that happen. It was the best day ever.
They smiled all day. It was a nice day, it was an active day, it was fun.
It was great. And kids who, they knew if they didn't come to school, they weren't gonna be missing any classes. Kids came. Kids who don't come to school came. It was a big day. It was great. Field Day, June 2nd, was another great day. That was for elementary. The PE department organized stations. The day ended with a tug of war and a hot dog lunch. It was all hands on deck on a very hot day, but the kids had a blast. 6th grade trip to New York City was last week. They enjoyed the play, which was Aladdin, and they loved being in Times Square. Our integrity winners of the month were treated to a trip to the Fort Edward Library, where Ms. Vicky taught them about the history of the library and of Fort Edward School. She led the students in a fishing game, and then we ended the trip with freeze pops, so they had a great time. And a lot of them were like, this is my first time on a bus. So we couldn't walk down because of the poor air quality. Which brings us to our incentive trip to Lake Lauderdale was derailed by the poor air quality last Thursday. Broadway Lanes came to the rescue, and we brought 70 students, grades 7 through 12, to spend the day at Broadway Lanes. They bowled, they had the golf and baseball simulators going. The trip was a direct result of our attendance and character ed PLCs, whose goal it was to increase attendance and reward good behavior. So we had 70 kids who missed 2 or 2 or fewer days from March on and had no referrals. So they were treated to that day, so it was great. Sports awards ceremony was Thursday. We changed a few things around. We invited modified and JV athletes who previously had not been invited. We held it here in the auditorium rather than at the firehouse. And after some reflection, we're looking to make some more positive changes to the event for next year. A Chromebook collection for grades 6 through 12 will happen tomorrow, so our tech department is gearing up for that. It's going to be a busy day. Regents exams start on Wednesday, so grades 7 through 12 will report only when they have an exam. Summer Academy is in the works. There was a parent meeting just before this meeting down in the auditorium. We currently have 66 confirmed registrations. Last year we had 80 students total. We are still making calls to families, trying to, especially some of the kids who have been requested to come by their teachers. So we're still making those phone calls. Summer credit recovery is a go. We have a coordinator and 2 teachers to man the program. Starting next week, families of students who fail classes will be strongly encouraged to register for credit recovery. It will run July 5th through August 15th, Monday through Thursday. It's going to be a self-paced online program allowing students to recover lost credit and hopefully remain in good standing for graduation.
Will that prep them for summer regents?
Yes,
Okay,
exactly. Yep, they'll accumulate right in those regions. And we're using Eduseer, which is an online program, but it's New York State certified. Teachers are New York State certified, and it's a New York State education recognized program. Upcoming events, tomorrow's junior high awards assembly and our senior high awards assembly. Senior trip to Hampton Beach, which you heard about already. Pre-K and K graduations on June 21st. 5th grade moving up ceremony is June 22nd. Graduation is June 23rd, and the front lawn at 6 p.m. And our guest speaker is Eileen Doyen, who's a graduate of Fort Edward. And now she's an author, and she was absolutely thrilled that we offered her the opportunity. Yeah, she was thrilled. We had a great conversation. She cannot wait. And then lastly, our attendance rates, year to date, 90.02% attendance rates. Best attendance, 2nd and 6th graders with 93%, and then 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 12th close behind with 92% attendance. Most room for growth for that 9th grade cohort at 80%. The quarter so far, this was our best quarter of attendance so far, 91.25%. Best attendance was 2nd grade with 96%. Kindergarten, 3rd, and 11th grade had 95% attendance this quarter. Most room for growth, that 9th grade. And that's where I am.
In that vein, to Audrey's here, and thanks to the PTO for the fun day, because it was really good. You skipped it, but I.
We tried.
It was good. They really, really do a good job, I'm telling you. They've done that, those guys. They are committed. Thanks.
Thank you.
Just a side note, if we sent anything to Broadway Lanes, I think the last couple of times we've had some things go awry, Broadway Lanes.
They really stepped up.
Stepped up, so maybe send a letter thanking.
Thank you, absolutely, absolutely.
I just have one comment. I heard concerns about the fairness of the end of year trip for like the ruling attendance. For one student who said here was disqualified from the trip because too many absences that were out of his control, and that just seemed unfair. Like him and his group of peers thought that was a unfair way because the student had no control of those absences to miss out on it. So I don't know if that's the best way to qualify people for an end of year project.
That is something we can talk about.
Something we can talk about.
All right.
Chris, you've talked a lot.
I don't know what you want me to say now.
Pass, Chris, we have already.
Laziness in here.
I used to play baseball.
Well, what's your about that?
It's the Canadian air that's fucking everybody. Building man, Steve, welcome.
Finally, that's why we all came here.
Let me wake up.
Steve, can you go check the generator?
Yeah. Well, it's nice to be here. I know I've been here for 2 or 3 months, but and for one reason or another, Rich says, okay, I'll take care of it. What do we got? And he jotted down
He
for me.
throws you under the bus though, he says, oh.
But
He's gotta do everything himself.
Not true, my friend.
I know you better than that.
No, I just kidding.
I first of all, I just wanna say an overall thing is that, I haven't said this to Rich either, but coming in this building, after being here prior 5 years working, and working through some tough years where we couldn't even buy a crayon, and dealing with that and trying to work through stuff here. When I came in, I didn't know I was in the same school, because it's totally different. I saw the upgrades and there was so much going on, and it's kind of pumped me up a little bit to, okay, working with Rich, what do we got, what do we gotta do? So I've been very busy. My blood pressure's down and I've lost some weight.
Nice.
So I'm on the right track. I'm on the right track.
I told you when I signed that Glen Falls card, you gotta come back, look at these guys.
I know it. From riding around.
Your blood pressure's probably back.
Yeah, so I'm riding around the truck to this, so it's great to be back. So it's late, a lot going on, right now, I went from trying to be, I felt like TBS working on the boilers, cause I was TBS, turn the boilers on, turn them off, turn the pumps on, back and forth, but now we're working on air conditioners. Right now, I've got them coming in TBS tomorrow to try to do that. Trying to get the grounds looking better for, you may have noticed, I put some topsoil, a little bit of seed. Bad timing, I went and put seed down in the drought. That's not smart, but I was trying to get things looking good for graduation as best I could. I'm trying to implement and trying to get the staff. I had a lot of ideas when I came in, and I told, during my interview, I said some things about wanting to get the staff more into the cleaning and how we don't cross-contaminate and things like that. And so I'm working on that. I'm waiting for some more product to come in, but I've got everything devised. You don't clean a toilet with a brush and then clean a sink, or drinking fountain or a sink, and the rags have to have a separate color. You have to get things organized.
You gotta have a system.
Yeah.
Gotta have a system.
Gotta have a system.
Brush your teeth with that either.
I had a class, during spring break, I had a Monday class, we went through everything, and I think they got quite a bit out of it. So, that's that. The breaching, I've been in touch with, Campito Plumbing. They're breaching, the rest of the boilers are gonna be put in tomorrow. They're coming tomorrow morning to take care of that, and there won't be far behind. We'll be doing the, firing them up and getting things going shortly after that, so it's coming pretty close. With that being said, I'm working with Rich and Chris, and Chris is tough, trying to get a penny out of him is crazy. He's like, now wait a minute, no, we really need this.
I don't want a sticky note.
Come on.
I'll give you 2 cranes.
It's gotta present itself right now.
Yeah, so anyway, they were talking about B&L controls. I've talked to them, and I've been on the phone with them last week, talking about conditioning the water. In the past, there's a lot of problems in the heating system. We got great boilers now, looks great down there, we get them fired up, but we gotta get the water treated and cleaned, because what's happening is we've had no heat in some rooms, and it's been really cold, and it's because they're clogged. The coils can't get the water through them, and so then the room is cold, and when it gets below 65, guess what? You can't stay in that room. You gotta get the kids out of there. Besides that, it could freeze. So, with that being said, we're talking about implementing this, it's gonna be some money. I think we're talking 12,000-13,000 to have the chemicals put in, and we gotta run it through the whole building, and then we've gotta purge and drain and flush to get all the stuff out of the coils and everything. So, because it's also clogging up our TVS valves. So I'm down on the computer, I'm getting a complaint, and I can't do nothing about it. Why? Because the valve can't shut because there's junk in there. So that's being worked on. Like I said, we're working on, I'm gonna try to get the rest of the bushes trimmed and mulched for graduation. I want everything looking good out front, get things going. Been trying to get a handle on the keys situation throughout the building. I found out it isn't what everybody thought it was, and now I know. So I'm trying to get master keys for certain individuals, but I made a book. I want to keep track, because what's happened in the past is we hand out keys and we don't get them back. And that's not good, especially if I'm handing out master keys that can be used in the whole building. So that's critical. So I've got to get a handle on that, on the keys. We talked about the generator. I was with the guys and we did that. The roof project on the garage out here where the tree came down, he's coming tomorrow. He's gonna scan it out and tell me what I gotta tape off and everything, because they're gonna start that project and get it finished off and get that taken care of. Rich has been working, emailing back and forth with him. While he finally contacted me, he's gonna meet with me tomorrow morning and try to get that set. I've just been doing a lot of work, trying to get preventative maintenance is where I'm at. All my equipment, I do landscaping on the side, all my equipment, I don't want breakdown, it's not good. So I'm trying to get all our equipment up and running and make sure things are right with it. The last thing is the air conditioners. We got some in some offices. She's one of them. I see her. She looks pretty nice right now, really nice, but by the end of the day, her hair's starting to do this. It's getting all on you, Steve. It is. It's toasty in there, so we're working on that. The one in hers is totally gone. The board's fried. We had guys in there looking at it. I tried to get it going. I did have it going for a little while, but it's not right.
It was beautiful, like 3 or 4 hours.
Wasn't it?
Down to the sweatbox.
That's the way it is,
Well, we call it sauna, so that's a perk you got, I didn't tell you about.
But there you go.
So, anyway, we're working on, that's what's going on right now. We got some issues with her air conditioner. We might have to replace the whole thing to get that right in there. So that's working with Rich and Chris and trying to get that all set. But, basically there's been so many different things, as you guys all know, that have been kind of let go for a while, and because of one reason or another, contingency budgets and different things that's happened to us. But I really see a lot of great improvements and a lot of things happening for the school. And that capital project, I'm just ecstatic. There's so many things that this place is gonna be nice.
State of the art.
State of the art. State of the art. That's all I have.
Thanks, sir.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
All right, Stephen Goldman is here. Okay, discussion items. I want to say thank you to Christina Durkee for 3 years of excellent service and active service to the Board of Education.
Absolutely.
Christina came in and she was able to juggle, coaching kids on a volunteer basis because she was a board member. She couldn't be compensated, so she stayed steadfast with that she had done prior to board member service, so I commend her for that. Her last meeting was a couple of weeks ago, a couple of days ago. I feel bad because we were properly recognized with that meeting. I know we kind of out of here pretty quickly, but yeah, I think we all appreciate her service. She did a great job for the community, led a lot of great counsel in here, a lot of great suggestions in here. So thank you, Christina, for your service. And then to Mr. James Donahue, being a fantastic member of our board for 5 years. Today will be his last regular board meeting. We're gonna fit in like at least 6 before. But this will be his last regular board meeting, and James, it's always been a pleasure, man, working with you. You've been great in here. Your experience as an educator and all you do for the recreation really has paid off great for us in this board meeting, and I appreciate it.
Well, it's been a pleasure. It's nice to work with people who are actually committed, all go in the same direction, looking for what's best for the kids, so it's been a pleasure.
Some encouragement.
Thanks. All right.
Yeah, I know.
Speaking of board members, we have a vacant board seat that becomes a vacant board seat July 1. We have a timeline that we have to fill that board seat. As everyone knows, just to not go long into this, but we were a 9-seat Board of Education. It was voted to bring us down to 7. With Christina leaving, that plan kind of went awry. So now we have a vacant seat with Mr. Donahue's seat being, his term ending. So when last we spoke, we are putting it out to the public. Have we done that already, or we're gonna do that?
No, I think we need to really formalize that step by step. So how does that actually happen? Because I think there was,
we have
we
precedent
were,
on it,
yeah, we were a little confused. I thought, I guess in my own brain, it was like a formal application. You were gonna look at applications and then
I don't think
move
so.
forward.
So we did it
Trust
before.
letter, right?
We've done it before. Yeah, we did it before. I think the Supernaut was the person who was appointed. Came down to her. So we put out an email from, if I can recall correctly, Toby put an email out to the public and noted on social media, if anyone is interested in serving as a board member, please contact the board clerk. We did put verbiage in there that there was a preference for anyone who had served on the board prior. Wasn't necessary, but it was a preference only because the catch-up time for a new member for a short service. Speaking of board logistics, someone who knows the deal would be preference, but that is not a game changer. So we put it out, I think it was just a simple post.
This is on the website.
It's on the
Yeah, it was
website.
on the website, it was on social media, an email went out to certain emails, I guess that we had, as parent emails or whatever, community emails. And then we had a meeting and we were presented with the 2 folks who were interested at the time. Then we found out that one of the people who were interested were no longer interested. And so there wasn't really an application, wasn't really an interview process. It was one person was available and they got to see.
We still did,
We did.
go
We did
through-
speak to them,
we
we
still
did speak, yeah, we did
we
speak,
set
you're
up a meeting and, for the purpose of going into executive session, we still went through the process.
Right.
To have the conversation of why are you interested and that type of a thing, and then, I don't remember if we went right back out and approved, appointed at that meeting, or if we made the decision and then we appointed at the next meeting, but we did go through the
We did go through
process,
that
even though there was
process,
only
right,
one
okay, so, yeah,
person.
so that's basically the process, so if you guys could just get it out to the public.
I remember seeing that on the site myself and all of that, but when I asked, if there was like a specific, application that was, I think that it, but my question got confused because what I was given was the petition for a seat, and I'm like, I
Oh, that's
think
only
that
an
that's,
election.
yes,
That's only an
so
election.
I'm like, that's not what I was looking for, so I didn't know if there was like a specific, like you wanted them to fill out the application that's out front, or just send an interest letter, or.
Just an interest
What
letter.
happened in the past was I think they just, one person I think dropped off a letter at the school, and another person had sent an email and just said, I'm interested, so basically letter of interest, or it came to you, did it go, or does it go to the board of ed?
Well, board clerk, goes to the board clerk,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
What do you feel about the verbiage that we had in there about previous board experience? You want to get rid of that?
I don't know, I mean, it's up to you guys, you let me know what you wanna do. The only reason why I put it in there is just to explain that, catching up's a little quicker.
I mean, the situation we were in
It's not-
back then was,
Yeah,
really
a lot
needed
of stuff
something.
going on, so, yeah.
I like it as the preference, because
I
it
just don't
doesn't
want-
even mean that we would,
Doesn't
that
disqualify anybody.
No,
Correct, and
but
if
I
we
just
had
don't
two
want
different
to,
people-
Scare
people not
anybody
to do
away.
it because they're like, well,
Yeah,
we're
that's
just
a good
gonna.
point.
Yeah, why did
I don't think it matters, I think
Yeah.
when it's evaluated, there's then you can take it from there. I wouldn't put the verbiage in.
Yeah, no, that's fine, yeah, I agree.
All right, so, yeah, if you wanna throw us the verbiage that you're gonna put out there, and we'll just say yay, and then we'll do it, okay? And then I guess social media, the website, I don't know where else we went out, I thought we sent emails to people, but maybe I'm wrong.
We put it in the paper.
Oh.
Yeah.
Now the paper's not gonna be the paper anymore, so who cares?
Ones that were former board members, did we send something out?
Oh, you know what, we might have sent it to people who served
Who
prior.
had served
I
before?
think we did, I think we sent it to people who served prior. So that's where I'm getting emails from. But yeah, I would just put it on social media, on the website, and then we'll go from there.
One clarification on the timeline.
There you go.
Yeah.
I think she had resigned as of June first. Yeah. So it's a June, you had said July first, huh?
Well, July first starts the term, right, so we're probably not gonna have someone in place for July first, I don't
No.
think that timeline.
I see what you're saying, correct, okay.
But, yeah.
We have
but-
90 days from that June first, though, correct?
Correct, because we are a 7-person board right now, so I think, we got the guidance on that, but we do have to do it.
Yes.
We have to have that person in the seat by the August meeting, that's what I would say. So we have to maybe pick 2 days in July where we're interviewing interested folks, and we're talking about those folks and figuring out who we're gonna appoint. So, yeah, I would say the deadline to get applications would be, I don't know, July 15th, middle of July?
Fair.
Do you want it before the July 10th meeting, or whenever?
I mean, it's June 12th now, if we were able to get it out tomorrow or say Wednesday, would you want a 2-week turnaround and then maybe try to do
Makes sense,
something in
yeah.
July?
Yeah.
And then have them appointed at the July 1, swear them in, ready
July
to have,
10th 's our
or
meeting.
July 10, sorry.
July 10th meeting.
Yeah.
That would
So
be.
how about July,
If it
like
works out, yeah,
6th
that's
is
what I
Thursday?
If it works, if it rolls, yeah.
To get them in, then we can review them.
That works.
I mean,
All right, cool, sounds good.
Not that it truly matters, but I just wanna clarify, the 90 days you guys are talking about, that's still the special election. There is no time frame to, fill the seat if you're not doing a special election. You can wait 6 months if you wanted to, but they don't recommend that you do that because your seat, like your, need for quorum and all of that is still based on the numbers that your board is, not how many are seated on there. So you're not held to, if you went 4 months, it wouldn't make a difference, other than the fact that you're missing out on a person.
And you're sick.
Well, no, just, I mean,
Yeah.
go with what
I
you
just
said,
even know.
go with what you said, right?
When
Put
you-
it out,
you-
get
you-
it 12, get it a couple
yeah, so,
weeks.
yeah.
That's what I said, not that it matters,
Yeah, no,
I just
I
wanted to.
appreciate it, yeah, I didn't know that.
Hey, you need to stop reading stuff.
Yeah, so let's get them out there, let them know all the fringe benefits, all the salary, all the benefits that go along with this, put that in there, it's pick 0, but keep it in there anyway.
We'll get you.
Oh, they put that in mine. Yeah, oh, sorry.
So, just to tighten down the timeline, so today's the 12th, she'll send you some kind of script, either in the next 1 or 2 days. If you could get her feedback, and if we posted it on the 19th, which would be Monday, how many weeks do you want it to go, 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
2 weeks.
Okay, so the 19th through July 3rd would be exactly 2 weeks, so you might wanna say deadline of July 3rd. And then would you guys wanna look at applications during the later end of that week and then for the 10th, or do you wanna just look at your applications on the 10th and then make decisions from there?
Let's see how many.
Yeah.
Let's see, yeah, let's see
More
how
than,
many people.
you know.
Because we might be able to get it done by the 10th, but I don't know. So,
Right.
So
If
we'll play it
if
by,
it works out naturally to do it by the
Okay.
10th, great, but I say we don't rush it to try and make it happen at the 10th, does that make sense?
yeah, so we'll tentatively put, application review at the July 10th meeting.
Yeah.
And if it happens before then we can make it happen then.
Cool.
All right, okay.
Awesome, thank you, folks. Gaming club.
All right.
That's what we've been waiting for.
You gotta stick it around the wall.
I thought we were gonna assemble a pep band or something. That's what we did.
No, we wanna talk about gaming.
It's the marching band.
I had this meeting as well, I didn't wanna take it.
Thank you, that would be very upsetting.
Yeah, it's.
All right,
Holy cow, man.
so,
welcome. Early night, as we can tell. So this sort of all stemmed out of Tim initially talking about the prospect of doing an esports club.
Sure.
And we sort of worked on it. I talked with Dr. Malley and Aaron about it. And we sort of realized that the scope of what we wanted to do and the student body and interest that we've got probably would have resulted in burnout that would have kind of trickled down in interest over time. So what we did is I got Amanda involved, and we're looking at doing a broader scope. So instead of just focusing on video games, we're incorporating board games and some tabletop role-playing games to sort of hit a bunch of different avenues that we've seen interest for through both surveys and also fun day activities. We saw a lot of participation in that. So as far as format, we're looking at a weekly rotation. So first week we would do board games, second week video games, third week RPG, and then the fourth week that would be our opportunity to either have a week off from it or have a meeting, discuss fundraising ideas, stuff like that, kind of like a flexible week for us to work within that.
So from there, we basically broke down what we were looking at for the 3 days. So board games was super popular during Fun Day. We had 3 different sessions. At least 50 kids played through those 3 sessions. It was mostly games that myself and Michael brought in. So we planned to play a mix of those classic games that they all like: chess, Battleship, Sorry, Uno, the ones they always gravitate to. But they also like a lot of those modern famous favorites: Taco Cat, Goat Cheese Pizza, Apples to Apples, Ticket to Ride, Ghost Splits. And they were playing a lot of that stuff at Fun Day last year and this year. So I know there's interest for board games. We'll start with using our own collections, but we'd like to fundraise to have a collection of board games for the club. Video games, you've already talked about some of the esports stuff. So with the esports survey, we had about 60 students interested at the time. We know that that may change throughout. We're looking at doing, starting with Super Smash Brothers and Mario Kart in 2 different classrooms on the smart boards. So there'll be 2 teams. Michael will take one and I'll take one. And we're bringing in our systems to start with and controllers, and the kids can bring in their own controllers. But eventually we want to fundraise to have a Nintendo Switch and 4 controllers and the 2 games.
Yeah, and with that we've been working with Sandy Wagner to coordinate a network to use for these systems. So if we buy our own systems, we don't have games on those systems, and those games are not updated or with all of the other content that they need. So we need them on a network. With our systems, it's not as big an issue because I can always take it home and do all of that stuff on my own network. But actually on Wednesday, I'm bringing in my system to test a network that Sandy's got set up.
Yep, so it's already set up and he's looking at making it so it's safe and secure.
Yeah.
We would be the only ones that could access it with the password and stuff.
And making it so that if anything ever happened and went horribly wrong and we needed to change the password, it's that quick. And we don't need to work on a long-term solution for it.
Correct. Last day is tabletop role-playing games. If you're not familiar with them, it's just basically shared storytelling, guided by a defined set of rules, usually applied through rolling fun dice. In most games, there's usually one player that's the game master or the GM. They kind of explain the game to the players. Each other player controls one character. And essentially, let's go back. The GM describes the game and its inhabitants. The other players describe the intended actions of their characters. Then the GM describes the outcomes. There are many, many, many different systems I have played over the last 20 years in my role-playing experience, but we're probably going to start with Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, just because it's the one the kids are most familiar with, and we both have the resources to run that.
So we both know that a lot of kids have either played or have interest in it. We had an info session run by Amanda's husband on Fun Day. We had 29 students, so we ended up having to move rooms because it was so full. We also have the equipment to get that going already. There are also a lot of resources that Dungeons & Dragons has, like there are educational kits. Amanda put in for one, I'm gonna put in for another one, so then we have 2 sets in total. And then with that, we also get all of the digital resources that we would need as
So
well.
all the books and everything would be free licenses for educators. They have this whole great educator website and curriculums and everything if you want to bring it into the classroom, but we're really focusing on the after school. Because we do have kids that are playing right now, like on a weekly basis, and they're interested in getting more of their friends into it.
Yeah.
So if there is too big a group, we're gonna split it into two. I'll take the middle school and be the GM, and Mike will take the high school students and be the GM. And we do have a junior who will be a senior next year, who's also interested if we need a third GM.
Very interested. Yeah.
Very, very interested.
So I'm sure one of the questions that you have is, what's the benefit of doing something like this? There's a lot of benefits to RPGs that kind of carry over. There's critical thinking and problem solving skills, working collaboratively with others, literacy skills. This is based on books and reading and arithmetic. All of that is super important. Having to do a lot of mental math. You roll 6 dice. You have to total those all up. Hopefully you can do it without a calculator.
And then add your modifiers and then...
Yeah, and then you have to add a whole bunch of other stuff on that.
So it really does, it fosters collaborative creativity, critical thinking, solving, all that stuff. Most of the D&D books are written at a very high academic level, so just reading them can be a challenge. Anecdotally, one of our students that got into it in 8th grade was kind of a struggling reader, and now he jumped 2.5 grade levels in the 6 months he started reading, really getting into D&D. Now that's just one anecdotal student in our school, but it does have that effect on our students. It's interesting and they want to read about it, and they want to play it. So we came up with some general gaming club rules. Good sportsmanship is required at all times, that play nice, win nice, lose nice. Respect is a must. Foul language, unkind behavior is not going to be tolerated. Treat all club equipment with care. Intentional rough use of games is prohibited. Of course, the student code of conduct must always be followed. And membership is a privilege, so any poor conduct will result in removal from the club to keep it fair and happy for everyone. I came up with a couple fundraising ideas that we're thinking if we could get going next year. A pop-up board game cafe. So that we'd have board games out and a concession stand. The kids could teach some of the games. We'd invite the community members in to play games and eat.
And we'd have our older students teach games as kind of a rotation.
Maybe a December drop and shop night where we could have fun stuff for the kids to entertain them while parents go and shop for the holidays. Basic selling of gaming merchandise. The class of 2023 last year did vinyl stickers of different FE stuff, and it was really popular. So doing some gaming ones, and we have some tech kids who would definitely like to design some. Maybe some FE gaming apparel, and David's Cookies were always popular. One of my favorite fundraisers to give money to. So, did you guys have any questions about what we're thinking of for next year for Gaming Club?
I think it's great.
Very thorough.
Thank you guys so much.
Do you guys need chess sets or dungeon dice? I've got.
Oh, we've got plenty, but thank you.
Yeah.
But chess sets, maybe. The kids are super into chess.
Oh, I love it.
I have 2 boards in my room. They're always being used when they're
I
done.
had a kid last year, I had a prep, he would come in just about every day. He'd be like, can you play chess? I'm like, yeah. Or, no.
Anything else, guys? It's fantastic.
Just keep us updated if you need, like, things come up and you need stuff or need help from, like, advertising, anything with this,
Yeah.
because this sounds awesome.
Participation already is great, so.
I love how it took the idea that Tim and Taylor, you had jumped on that, took that idea and then added to it and cultivated it to, include the board games, and I just think it's great.
Yeah, and I think from the student perspective, so Taylor knows this, probably a few of you know this, I was a student at Fort Edward. I graduated in 2016.
I didn't know that.
And
That's great. Oh, yeah.
yeah, I think I was one of your husband's first classes.
Great.
So when I was a student, this is something I would have absolutely loved, and I would have always wished that this was a thing. So to be able to try to foster that and bring that to another younger generation of kids is really nice and positive.
You two seem like a great team also.
Thank you. Yeah, we work well together.
So far, so good.
So far, so we're very excited about gaming.
Yes.
Until the kids show up.
Anything else?
Yes, I just wanna thank you guys for all the work that you put into this so far. It's clear that, the kids are gonna feed off that passion that you have for it, and I expect the club to be, well attended, and the kids having a lot of fun, but, you know, you equate this is what it takes to build stuff, when you have two passionate people that are willing to put in the work and make the sacrifices, so I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
So the discussion item I have for you guys as a board is, and we don't have to decide it tonight, because I know it's late, but it goes back to what Tim said in about 4 meetings. This would be an initial year of a club. Are we providing a stipend, or is it going to be a pilot? So, nothing we have to do now, but that decision probably should be made by July 10th at the next meeting.
Do we know what class it's gonna fall under as far as,
It would be an extracurricular, and no, I don't, because I'm thinking of the coaching scale, so sorry.
so we've gotta find that out and we'll get that info.
Yeah, I guess one other point that we had is we discussed age range in our meetings. I think we said grades 8 and up because there's a couple restrictions on some of this stuff for ages 13 and up. And if we do 8th grade, then I think the vast majority of those kids are at least 13 years. Whereas if we go into 7, if we're at the beginning of 7th grade, we have those 12-year-olds turning 13.
Right, yeah.
But if we're doing 8th grade, all those kids should be 13 already.
Yeah, I think that's. I'll tell you, it's nice, because most of the clubs and sports and everything have been set up for years and years and years, so this is a time where somebody actually listened to the kids and what do you guys want to do?
Right.
And came out and gave them what they want, because, I've said this before, it's the Field of Dreams thing, when you can build it, they used to say, build it, they'll come. Well, that's not necessarily true. You come up, see what they want to do, then when you then build it and they'll go. So, I mean, I like the way the whole process was very good.
And you've seen the fun day as, you know,
Yeah, that was kind of a litmus test. Yeah.
Awesome. Put the feelers out there and, yeah.
Yeah, and way more participation than we expected, so.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You're probably gonna get even more.
I think one of the sessions had like, what, 25, 30 kids in it?
Yeah, yeah.
Very full.
I have
That's
a few
awesome.
kids who eat lunch in my office every day,
You going to
and
stop?
they are, they're in their lunch, but they are like over the moon that this is gonna happen, because they were asking about a board game
so
club,
fun,
so I
board
was
game.
like, well, it's
That's a
gonna be
great
a board
addition
game
to
and
this.
gaming, and
Yeah.
they can't wait, so.
I really think it'll be nice. Some kids might only come to one session, but some might come to all 3.
Yeah, and I think it being flexible helps with that, because if we just did just video games all the time, probably after a month or 2, we'd have significant drop off.
Because I'm gonna incorporate the board game thing with the rec schedule this year, just because that's one of the kids' things they wanna do. I said,
Yeah,
it's
Yeah.
great.
tapping into student interest.
Yeah, it's good. I just 5 years ago, never thought about it.
No.
So now they want it.
They're
so-
really into it.
Sorry.
Awesome.
And thanks for waiting for this,
Oh.
meeting.
Thank you, guys.
Guys, can sleep in the
Oh,
sauna
you're
if you
leaving
want to
now?
wake up. You can wake up in the morning.
Quitters.
Use the sauna for the night and then,
Next up, Steve is here to talk about fall cheerleading and competitive cheer.
Bug bunny, rah, rah, rah.
That's it. Steve, time for you to go home.
Been a long day.
So, obviously, you know, we were merged with Hudson Falls to possibly do that, and we dissolved that merger, and now, the direction we wanna go in is to have a winter cheer and a game day competitive cheer. So I'm working with FIDA on the stipend for this, because if it is an actual competitive cheer, which I think it will be, that season goes 4 to 6 weeks longer than the winter season. So usually the winter season will end around January, and competitive cheer goes right through the end of March. I think the last one they have is at the end of March.
So we'll have a fully certified coach.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
If that's the case.
Well, she'll be starting.
Well, it belongs to the process.
You got it, you got it. So I just wanted to let you know that that was in the works, and probably in the next, hopefully, the next board meeting, it'll be up and there'll be a scale for the stipend.
You know is it Nicole gonna do it? Cause I gotta talk to.
Well, she's applied.
Yeah, cause I may try to start cheering this summer. So I'm gonna throw that in the rec schedule, just to get her started.
That's cool.
Okay, so that's all I wanted to talk about. The next one is.
Yes. So the next and final discussion item is the SRO. We've talked about it. There's the money in the budget for the SRO. Now we just need to say yay or nay on putting this on the next agenda as a motion item. So I think we're okay with putting it on a motion item. Now, you guys are gonna vote yes or no.
Right.
That'll come down to the thing, but are we okay with putting this on the agenda?
Yes.
Is there anything you need me to discover, find, any information? If you need more, you can bring it up now, but if you let it marinate, I wanna at least bring it to you or get it out to you in my reports.
This went out in the pathways, right? It's something about their potential of a school resource officer next year. I feel like I remember seeing it. We did broadcast to the public that this was.
We've been talking about it.
For some
It
reason, I
wasn't
remember
pathways,
seeing
too.
it in
Well,
pathways.
Oh, yeah.
Alright, so
So we
that's
did
good.
notify the public. That was the first step that we were all concerned about, that they were aware. But
We've been talking about it for at least 2 meetings.
And has anybody, I have not heard any concerns
I've heard nothing
or,
negative.
anything negative?
I have concerns.
Okay.
I would like to know the job description, typical duties, whether you would have command and control of this person, who would be the direct report, do they have arrest powers, do they carry a weapon, do they carry handcuffs? So basically, those types of things, the little details.
I think we can get that easy, yes or no?
Oh, yeah, that's not a problem.
I can answer a couple of them now. Yes with the weapon, I believe, yes with handcuffs, I believe. Yeah, right?
Yep.
Yep. And, I would be an on-site supervisor, but his direct supervisor would be the sheriff.
Okay.
Yep. So I wouldn't be able to fire him or hire him, but I could say to the sheriff, this one's not working out here in ours. So, but I'll get those finite details too. But all we are paying for is the service. We're not, they're gonna select who comes here. So, but I'll get you more details on
That
that.
stuff, so
Would
we'll
you
be on the
mind
next
that?
agenda.
yeah, maybe we could just have something in our packet, like a little something for next time.
If we can get you the information beforehand, quite possibly, we can get it done with our next board meeting, special meeting, just so we can have it in process, because we've gotta let them know we want it, they've gotta send the right guy, we've gotta do all the background stuff in order to get the guy here July.
But Jeff,
September.
Jeff's gotta have that packet all set, he ends up,
I'm sure he
they go
does.
to school,
Oh.
so just give him, send him the email. So.
Alright, cool. Alright, if nothing else, I'm going to ask for consent agenda. Can I have a motion to approve A, B, C, D, and E? John?
Motion.
Taylor? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Alright, moving right along. Action items, there's gonna be a couple. Can I get a motion for A, please?
Motion.
Taylor and Ella, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Good. Need a motion to accept a generous $500 donation from First Baptist Church of Glens Falls Thrift Shop. James and John, any discussion? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to accept a generous donation of 50 hygiene kit bags from Lake George Region Women for Win, Inc. It's a mouthful. James, John, any discussion?
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Good. Need a motion for D,
Motion.
E, F, G, and H. John and Ella, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the first reading of the following revised policies, number 5661 wellness. John, Ella, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
We are going to, I need a motion to table J, please. John, James, all in favor?
Aye.
Personnel, all personnel appointments are subject to change in compensation, proration, pending emergency school closing, required reduction in force. All coaching appointments are made pending completion and verification of all required coaching credentials with the stipend per FETA contract commensurate with experience and all salary and benefits. All coaching extracurricular appointments are subject to reduction in compensation, proration, pending final student enrollment numbers and pending the outcome of any potential mergers and emergency school closings. Need a motion to accept A, B, C, and D.
Motion.
Taylor? Tim?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Need a motion to accept a letter of resignation from Catherine Elms effective June 9th, 2023. Taylor?
Second.
Tim? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
What's she going back to school for?
I'm sorry.
Said she was going to school, or she went to school.
She was able to do her bachelor's, I guess, while she
Oh,
was working here, I think it said in the letter.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your service. Any second public comment? No. That being said, I need you guys for exec, sorry, but, try to keep it tight. Everyone else is dismissed. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thanks, everybody.